Okay. So to start this whole process, you need to get to, who in here is on Windows right now? Okay, so for the Windows people right now, you need to get to your control panels. So again, you would go do a search. I don't ever remember how to exactly get there, navigate to there on Windows, but you're going to do a search to get to control panels, and that is where the driver preference panel to set up Wacom tablets should be. If it's not, let me know. For everyone who's on Macintosh, what you need to do is first turn your tablet on, so plug it in. In that case, I don't think the USB versions have an on-off button. I could be wrong. The wireless ones do have an on-off button that's right in the middle. So if you do have an on-off button, whatever, it's going to be right in the middle of the buttons that run along the very top of your tablet. For the Macintosh people, go to the Apple menu. So look at my screen, see where I'm at, and you're going to come down to System Settings. And then at the very bottom of the left-hand column, you will see there's a Wacom Center down here and a Wacom tablet. I'm going to want you to click on the Wacom tablet. And when you do, it should open up and you should get a screen that looks like this. For the Windows people, if you find the Wacom tablet part, you do the same thing and you should have a screen that looks like this. If you don't, you can well, here, tell me, do you or don't you? You do not. Do you have anything that says Wacom in your control?
I have Wacom Center.
What does it say? Wacom Center. Yeah, click on that. And let's click on Devices. And you need that turned in or plugged in. Yeah, it can't find it because it's not plugged in. So again, you have to have your tablet either connected wirelessly or wired if you have a wired one. So this is what goes in the tablet, and you own a USB-C, right? Yeah. Okay. You know I've got an adapter for you. It's going around, Miguel, somewhere.
I'll make sure I can comment.
Oh, and you don't make this. I'll try that. Yeah, that should do it. Shoot. Guys. So everybody's asking me these questions about there's no submit button in Canvas. That's by design because you don't submit during Canvas. We will actually go through the whole submission process today. Yes.
It says that it's not supported in this device.
Yeah, so this thing needs to be upgraded. The driver's there, but it's just this is a different tablet, so this needs to be upgraded. So we will do that, but you can follow along. Because again, for the most part, we are going to leave this at its default, and I think this tablet's upside down actually.
What is it connected with?
Oh, we're going to find out right now. Yes, it is. So you'll be able to do everything with it. It's just if you wanted to change something, like, are you left-handed? Okay, so if you were left-handed, you could use these preferences to flip that tablet so that it was on the other side. So it wasn't, anyway. We'll go through it all. Okay, so for everyone else. Yes. Oh, yeah, I do. You guys are killing me here. Sure. I have one last one. It's a completely different kind, but then I'm out.
I came up now, but how do I get to yours? Or
Uh,
would that look the same?
They should be the same. Yeah, they're slightly different, but this is the part that you're actually at. So you're just going to read different things down here, but it'll be the same thing. That should do it. Okay. So some of yours, my settings are going to be slightly different than yours. So for instance, when I open this up, I have a battery. You don't have a battery. A regular Wacom tablet doesn't take any electricity. That's our, a wired version. It gets it through the USB, so you don't need to worry about that. But I'm going to start at the very top, Yeah, make sure I'm recording. Yeah. At the very top, you'll see that there is an application tab. There should be. Now, again, on some of the Windows, your interfaces might be slightly different on this, but you'll come to see really quickly that some of these things don't matter. Some of these things might matter. If it really becomes an issue for you, then let me know. We'll figure out some way to do whatever we need to do. But at the very top, there is a way to add applications. Right now you'll see I've got one that says it's for all other. It means it's all applications. There's also a setting for Photoshop in here. Unless you want to do separate settings between programs, you don't care about this. You would just do one setup for all of your applications, or in this case, all others. So I can click on my Photoshop beta and I can subtract it and I can remove this and I'll say, yep, delete that. Or I can add an application. And the only reason you would do this would be if, for instance, in Photoshop, you do only really small detailed work, but then in Illustrator, you do really large gesturing work. You may want to have different ways your tablet acts when you're in different programs. This is a way to actually do that. I never use that feature, so if that's something that you want to get into, I'm happy to explore it with you, but there's no reason for this class that you actually need to do that. In this class, we are not going to leverage any of that stuff. We are going to pretty much work at the default settings that happen with this, but I do want to show you a couple tricks, a couple things that you might choose to change, so I don't want to just flat out say there's no reason to go in here. Yes? So it's saying you're getting a warning. It says it doesn't support it. It just this is one of the downfalls of Wacom tablets is that they are hyper driver specific. That means we just need to get the proper driver for you for your laptop. Raheem is the same thing. She's got the same issue with hers right now. So we will get that worked out at a certain point. But that's basically what it is. You can still follow along with what we're doing here. You're just not going to be able to have the tactile experience of it. So anyway. That's what that is right here. Underneath this, you've actually got a set of tabs. Again, depending on your tablet itself, you may have other tabs in here. So for instance, there's some Wacom tablets that not only come with a stylus, that's what this pencil pen thing is called, is a stylus. Some of them come with a stylus and a mouse as well, so they give you a separate mouse that works on a Wacom tablet. And if that's the case, if you have that tablet, then there will be another tab in here that says mouse. But to work our way down through basically what all of this is, again, this is specific to, that's what I was saying earlier about Wacom drivers. There's 1,000 Wacom tablets out there and there's 1,000 drivers out there, and you would think that Wacom would be smart enough to have a universal driver for all of them. They don't. You have to have the most specific driver for your tablet and your OS, and if you don't, it doesn't work. It's the most frustrating thing about a company that dominates the market. I mean, there are a few other tablet makers out there, but Wacom is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. So at any rate, the first thing you can see underneath the tabs, we'll get up to the tabs in a second to actually use them, are modifier keys, and that's what these guys are right here. If you take a look at mine, there's 5 of them that run across the top. There's actually only 4 keys, but there's the power key in the middle, but then there's 4 other keys in here, and what these are express keys. You can hit one of those keys and it will do something. These are programmable. So for instance, if you see this little illustration in mine, this this key right now that's set to modifier is for the first button that's all the way on the left-hand side. If you click on it, you can reprogram this. You can say, well, I don't want it to be a modifier key. I want it to be a click, or I want it to be a right click or a double click. Or I want this to actually do a keyboard. Instead of the modifier, I want it to be my undo key, or all of that. You can reprogram all of this. My suggestion to you is if you are new to tablets, you do not touch this stuff. It will only create confusion for you. Right now, the way this is set up, it will work. If you screw something, or if you get too tricky with this stuff, and you can't remember what it is that you actually did or why you, whatever, it just can be a mess and frustrating. We don't want that to happen. So at any rate, you can clearly modify that. You can do the same thing for the second button, the third button, and the fourth button. You can do all of those. My suggestion to you is do not change any of those right now. You do not need those right now. If you end up working a ton with a Wacom tablet and all of a sudden you find yourself constantly looking for a quick undo, a quick undo, a quick undo, whatever, then go in and change one of these modifier keys to be an undo key, and then when you hit that, it just undoes it. So anyway, again, I only have a battery because mine is wireless. In your case, you don't have one because most of you guys are wired. So anyway, moving on, we're going to go to the tabs up at the very top. We're going to go from the tablet to the pen. When you go to the pen, this is something that you can check. The reason I don't change things here in the pen part is that you can actually change certain things about this. Not everything, but certain things about this in Photoshop. That's where I prefer to do it. But to start out with, if you take a look at your stylus, you will see that there is a pointy end on one side. That would actually be the positive end. That's when you actually use that end on your tablet, you'll actually lay down ink. You can actually do things like that. The opposite side of it is an eraser. So this is set up. I mean, that's the default. You can change all of these behaviors. But again, the stylus end is typically what you would hold when you hold it like a pen. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up at me really quickly. That's actually how you actually make marks and draw and do all of that kind of stuff. By default, this pen is actually set up to be an eraser on the other side. But again, you can change that behavior. The thing is that the reason I point this out is that a lot of people, when they first start working with this thing, don't necessarily pay attention to which end they're picking up. And so they'll start to try to work with the eraser end, and they're using that to actually paint. Paint is a positive move, erasers are not. So if you try to paint with the eraser end, nothing happens, and you go, what's wrong with my tablet? There's nothing wrong with it. You just need to turn the thing upside down and actually use the stylus side to paint with it. So if you take your tablet now, your stylus, and you actually press down on your tablet, you'll see that there's a pressure thing that shoots up. It shows you how much pressure you actually need to go from what Wacom would consider to be the maximum amount of pressure. And the reason this happens is that you can use Wacom tablets to basically, you can assign things like opacity of your brush. You can assign that to the pressure of your tablet, or flow. If you don't know the difference between opacity and flow, don't worry, we will get to that. But you can use the pressure of your tablet to do flow. You can also use the pressure of your tablet to control the size of your brush. You can do it to control all sorts of things. The question that you have to ask yourself is that how hard do you feel like you want to press down before you get it all the way up to maximum? So this gives you a visual representation. If you tap on it like that and you say, okay, that's how much pressure it takes to get all the way up. If you crank this all the way up to firm, the tip feel, then you'll see it takes a considerable amount more pressure to get it all the way up to the get it to reach maximum. If you crank it all the way down to soft, you barely have to touch your tablet to get it all the way up. My, again, suggestion is for you to leave this at its default in the middle just to start out with. I can't tell right now whether my default here is this click up here or this click down here. If you don't know, you can always click on the default button and it will restore the settings in here to their default. In the double tick, the next one down, tip for the double click distance, what double clicking is that most of you know, and I think this is true on all computer systems, if you've got a file that you want to open up, if you click on the file one time, it selects it, but it doesn't open the file. In order to open the file, you need to do a double tap, right? Well, how much time between the first tap and the second is considered a double tap, and how much is considered two separate taps, not a double tap? So for instance, if I do this, everybody look up at my screen, look at me right now. If I do tap, tap, that is not considered a double click. That'll just be two separate single taps. But if I go tap, tap, it'll actually open the file. You can control how much time elapses between the first and the second tap. The reason is that people get to the point that they use only this, they stop using mouses and all that kind of stuff. It's just a way to fine tune it. So if you actually take this up to large, what it'll end up doing is when you do a double tap, you have you have to actually do it. I can't remember which one it is. It's either extremely fast or extremely short. And then off is the completely opposite of that. Again, this is something I would suggest that you leave in the middle, and then this will work pretty much like it works when you have a trackpad or when you have a mouse. The double tap feeling to open something seems normal to you. But again, if you find out that every single time you're working with your tablet and you're trying to do something that it reacts as a double tap all of the time and you don't want it to do that, this is a way that you can increase the time it would take or shorten the time it would take to see it as being a double tap. On the front of your stylus, if you take a look at it near the very bottom, near the tip part, there are two switches on the front of your tablet, front of your stylus. Most people, the way they work with this is they'll hold the stylus in their hand so that their finger is on the bottom button, the button that's actually closest to the tip. You can actually change what these switches do. So the switch, the way it's set up in this, in my screen right now, is the one that's on the very bottom is set up to scroll. I would never use that. But anyway, you could. I would actually instead trade the behavior. So the switch right now that's set on the back, the one that's closer to the eraser end, is set to be a right click. A right click on all machines, Windows and Macintosh both, gives you any drop-down menus that you might have. So it's similar to a control click on a Macintosh keyboard or a two-finger swipe on a Macintosh trackpad. But again, if you click this down, you can see you can change the behavior of these switches to do anything. So let's say that, I'm going to use the back switch. Instead of doing a right click, I'm going to use it. I'm going to set it to be my undo. And so now when I click on the back switch right here, it'll undo whatever the last move was. So again, you can do all of those sorts of things. I'm going to click on my options to jump back out of that. If you click on the options part right here, what this will actually do is, and this gets to be tricky when you're first working with tablets, graphics tablets, is a lot of times you're actually just hovering over the top of the tablet in order to get your cursor where you want it to be, and then you actually drop the stylus down onto the tablet to actually do something. You can actually control that behavior right here on top of this. So again, I'm leaving all of this at its defaults. There's no reason to change any of this, especially if you're new to this. So the next tab over is the mapping tab. This one I actually do use, and you can see if you've got this screen right here, mine looks probably different than yours looks right now. I'm going to watch the gray area of the tablet right here when I go back to my default. I'm going to click this to go back to my default, and you can see the live area of my tablet is actually, if you take a look on your tablet, it's where all the little dots are. And the bottom part of the tablet, the part that's, so again, if you consider the rows where all the buttons are as the top, and you should, because that's how it lays out on this screen, and you get to the bottom, this is the problem I have. So everybody watch me, you'll see where this is the problem that I run into. When I'm working on my tablet like this, and I'm working on the very top area that's up in here, my hand is actually resting on the tablet, and it feels really natural, and it's good. When I get down to working on the lower part of the tablet, part of my hand is on the tablet, and the other part of my hand is on the desktop, and I hate that. I hate the way that feels. Old Wacom tablets used to have a giant frame that would go around them, so you never did that. Your hand never slid off the tablet. I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. So what I do is I change the live area of my tablet. So right now this is set up. You can see that there is the tablet itself is at the bottom down here. This is supposed to be your monitor up here, and the entire area of your tablet is being mapped to the entire area of your screen. So yours should still be set like this. If you take your stylus and you go to the top right-hand corner of your tablet, it should be in the top left-hand corner of your tablet, it should be in the top left corner. And if you go over to the right side, it should be in the right side. If you go down to the lower left, it should be in the lower left. And you go down to the lower right, it should be in the lower right. And you can see the problem that I'm having right now, because my tablet is sitting on a book right now, and my hand is going completely off. It's just hanging in space. I don't like that part. So you can change how this ultimately works. If you click on the tablet area and the drop-down menu here, you'll see it's set to full. You can click on this and say, I don't want it to be full. I want it to only be a portion of my tablet. Now again, it's going to remap to the entire monitor. We're not going to lose anything on the monitor. We're just going to have a smaller space that happens on the tablet. And this is typically the settings that I use. So again, the coordinates here for me, the bottom you can actually change these. You can type in numbers, or you can simply click on these and you can scroll up and down. But you can see as I scroll up, what this is now going to mean is that the lower part of look at my screen right here to see where my cursor is. This lower corner right here is going to be the bottom left of my screen, even though it's not the bottom left of my tablet. This area of my tablet right here is going to be dead. It's just going to be my hand rest. That's what that's ultimately going to be. So you can move these things around like this. You can dial in numbers if you remember what yours are. You can actually, if you want to stay even more focused, you don't want to travel so far. So like the people who've got really big tablets right now don't want to go, 6 inches, 8 inches up to a corner and then 16 inches down to another corner. You can come in here and you can actually cheat all of this stuff in to make it a much narrower focused space that you're using on your tablet to map out. But I'm going to leave mine at this setup right now. I have a bigger Wacom tablet than this. I have a medium size, which is in between this size right here and the big ones that are also floating around this room. And it doesn't have as much problem. Again, I do a little bit of this, but it doesn't have to be as extreme as my smaller tablets are. And simply click OK. The other thing that's great about this is that if you have multiple monitors set up to your computer, multiple monitors will show up here. And so in this screen area, if you click on this drop down, you will see you can also change on your screen. You can do the very same trick on your screen where this maps to, so you can restrict where your tablet will work on your monitor. In most cases, you want it to be your entire monitor, but you'll also see that there's a monitor 1 in here. That's because I only have one monitor selected. But if you had 2 monitors, there'll be 2 monitors here, 3, and you can have your tablet only work on one monitor. You can have it work across all 3 of them. You get to have all of that freedom in here. So that's how basically these things are working. So this is how I'm going to leave mine. I told you before that there are Wacom tablets that have a mouse that goes with it. This is not going to impact this mouse that's right here. If you click on it, this is not going to impact you. This is not the mouse of your computer. This is not the mouse of that's connected to a keyboard. This is a mouse that's dedicated to. It's a Wacom mouse for a Wacom tablet. In my case, I don't have one, so there's no reason to deal with any of that. On-screen shortcuts, again, you can click here. I'm not a huge fan of shortcuts. It just seems like this, and I don't have that kind of memory. I'm not a by rote kind of memory person, but if you are, then this is a way that you can actually map out shortcuts that will also function with your Wacom. So you can actually add a keyboard shortcut that will then mimic the on-screen little buttons that are at the very top of your Wacom tablet. You can make this as complicated as you possibly would want to do, but in my case, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. So that's a quick run around here. If you're done with that, again, my suggestion right now is to leave it just at its default settings, certainly if you're brand new to this. And then just being aware that these things exist, and then as time goes on, if you feel like, oh my God, I feel like I really have to hammer on this tablet to get it to do what I want to do, go in and increase the sensitivity of the pen on the tablet, and hopefully you'll feel better about it. All right, so I can close this up. You guys can close all of that up. You can turn your tablet off or unplug it. The next stuff we do. Well, I take that back. Don't do that. I mean, there are things that we're going to get into right now that you can actually use a Wacom tablet on and start to get used to it. What I will say to the people when they first start doing this is that it feels weird. You have this like eye-hand disconnect. Because typically you would think, oh, I should be working right on my screen. And Wacom actually makes tablets that are screen-based. So instead of just having an opaque tablet, you literally have an LED readout screen, looks just like a monitor, and you can work directly on those. Somebody in here, it's either in this class or in some other, the other retouching class that I do, has actually got a Windows touch screen version that takes a stylus as well. And that works the same, but for them, it works just like a Wacom tablet that has an LED readout in it. So what I will say to you about Wacom tablets is, in the end, if you're serious about your retouching, you have to have a tablet. There's stuff that you're going to see in this class, you're going to find out that they're just prohibitively too difficult to do with a mouse or a trackpad. So what tablet to actually get. Again, I always work with the small ones. They're most portable, the easiest, take up least room, whatever. They work great. For us, we tend to work in very small, detailed areas, so you don't miss the real estate. I always buy refurbed ones. Go to Amazon. You look for the Wacom tablet, the small version of it. A refurb version is usually $50, $60, whatever, and it'll last you the whole life. So that would be, again, right now I'm not suggesting anybody in this class buy a Wacom tablet any more than I'm suggesting anybody in this class buy a X-Rite color calibrator color checker card. But these things, if you're going to continue in this game, are eventual buys for you. So I would, again, suggest right now, don't go out and buy one this week. Spend some time with a Wacom tablet. See how you feel about the size of it and this, that, and the other. Realize that you're going to have this tablet for the entire semester, so there's no reason to buy something sooner than you need to. But if you accept the fact that you're ultimately going to need to do this, you might want to go ahead and do it. So anyway, for what it's worth. Are there any questions about any of this? Okay. So I need everybody to fire Photoshop up. And then I need you to go to our session number 3. So in your student files, week number 3, I'm just going to open a couple of random things here to talk about building selections. And hang on, I just want to check someplace where I want to be. Yeah, okay, we're good. So anyway, there's 2 files that I want you to open up. Inside of yours, you should have the, there should be a composite of the castle. It's called Bruce Castle Composite. It's the assignment, that didn't turn out to be assignment. It's the working file that we did last week when we actually put together the Bruce with the skies and all that kind of stuff. If you can bring that file into Photoshop, that would be great. And then by the same token, I want you to open up another file as well. It's a file that's called gradients number 2. If you can open that up as well into Photoshop. So again, I have 2 separate images here that I can move around and play with. If you still have tab behavior turned on, you've got 2 tabs. I would suggest tearing off both tabs. You'll get to what my screen looks like right now. It's just simpler, easier to work with this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I want to actually bring a version of this file, the Bruce Fraser Castle file. I want to bring it in on top of this gradient thing. I want to just create a second level on top. So to do that, I don't want to do the sky one that's in here that we've redone. I want to do the base. So if you click on the base, you can see it's highlighted. The background level is highlighted, layer is highlighted. There's a square. There's a border a white border that's around this. It's telling me that that's the thing that I'm actually working with right now. If you click and you drag that over to the screen that is the gradient, before you let go, do not let go yet. If you've let go, hit Command-Z to undo it and start over. Before you let go, if you hold down the Shift key, it will center it. So this is just the center of that image. The castle image is much larger than the gradient image, which is fine. I don't care about that part. I just wanted you to actually bring that part in. But that trick about holding down the Shift key is important, especially when we get into doing compositing. If we were working with certain situations, it just helps, because otherwise what can happen is when you bring it in, I'll show you what can happen. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to click on the castle part, and I'm going to bring it in and just drop it in the lower hand corner. You don't have any idea where you're really going to hit. Sometimes part of your a good part of your image can be completely out of the frame, and that's not what I want. I want us all to kind of be on the same page. So I'm going to Command-Z that one more time and do this again one more time. Drag the castle on top of the gradients, hold down the Shift key, and let go, and it puts a castle on top of it. And you can see, you can no longer see the gradient part in here. You can close this castle up for the time being right now. It's done everything I needed it to do. However, I want to always work with my image, well, not always, in most cases, I want a largest view that I can get of my image, but still see the entire image. So to do that, you simply come over to your tool panel, down to the hand that's down near the bottom part of it, and double click really fast. It will enlarge this image as big as it can be without going underneath any of your palettes, without going under any of the property panels or any of that kind of stuff. So you'll see in my case, I'm looking at an image right now that's almost 200%. So it's a considerable enlargement over what should actually be here, but that's fine. It gives me, again, what I want to see in all of this. Now, keyboard shortcuts that we were talking about. If you hit the B key, you'll get a brush. And if you come over onto your image, you'll have a brush. And if you'll take a look and you'll see my foreground color and background color are both black right now. I want to get them back to their default. We're going to talk about masks and selections today to death. So this part actually matters. So to default your foreground and your background colors to their default, which is black and white, you simply hit the D key. There's no modifier in here. If you cannot remember it, there's a little baby icon above this that actually is a little black and a little white foreground background color. You can click on that. It'll do the same thing. There's also a double-headed arrow right above the foreground and background color that allow you to swap foreground and background colors so you can go back and forth. I'm just hitting that little thing repeatedly. A better way to do it is to just use the X key back and forth. However, while I've got a brush that's actually out on this, it doesn't matter what tool you have. If you hold down your space bar, you will get a hand. And if you get a hand, you can now click and you can actually move this thing around. So don't need to move mine around right now. I'm just showing you that that's actually what's going on. And what's weird about this is that I'm not getting the correct screen redraw on this because it should be actually on here. I've got more screen than this, but it looks like it's actually cropped this thing. I'm going to go back into my history and click on drag layer, and it should reset this, although it also didn't do that. Sorry. I got to look into that because that is not normal behavior. But hey, this is Adobe advancing the technology for you. Thank you so much. Anyway, if you hold down the space bar and the command or control key if you're on Windows, your tool will turn into the magnifying glass. If you let go of those keyboard, you go right back to the tool. So it's a much faster process to do that than it is to select the magnifying glass, come back into your image, zoom in, then go back to the brush and start to do your work, and then go back to the magnifying glass. It's just a pain in the ass to do that. So holding down the space bar by itself is the hand. If you add the command or control key, you get the positive magnifying glass and you'll zoom in. And if you hit the option key on top of that, so all three, spacebar, command or control, option key, you will get the negative magnifying glass and it'll allow you to zoom back out. But what I'm really concerned about here more is masking. So to add a layer mask to this, I want to make sure that everybody is good on masking here because there's tricks about masking. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with this because I said in the very first class that we did here that if you could make a selection in Photoshop, you could do anything, but that implies the fact that you're going to use that selection to create a mask because the selection by itself doesn't really do you anything. Well, that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true, but we'll get to that in just a second. So to add a layer mask to this, if you come down to the icons that are at the lower part of your layers palette, if you started we've gone through these once before at least, but I want to go through them one last time. If you start to the icon that's all the way to the right-hand side, it's the garbage can. It's how you throw away layers. If you go to the very next one, heading towards the left, it's the square with the plus in the center. This is how you add an empty layer. So if you click on it, it'll add just a blank layer. There won't be any content in it. You will see when you look at it, you'll see the checkerboard. That's how Photoshop indicates transparency. And again, it would be completely transparent because there's nothing in it. The next one over that looks like a file folder is how you actually add groups to your layers palette. Sorry. Groups to the layers palette. So it gives you, it's just a way to structure. If you've got 100,000 layers, you need some way to group them together so that you're not having to go through all 100,000 to get to some layer that you're trying to get to. So it's strictly organizational. It doesn't have any other impact on your images at all. The next one over, the circle that's half black and half white, if you click on that, these are all your adjustment layers. So we've gone through these, we've used these before, we don't need that anymore. The next one over is the layer mask, and you'll notice when you that it's a it's a white screen, a white square with a black circle in the middle. If you click on that, it'll actually add a layer mask to this. So I need everybody to go ahead and click on that. It'll add a layer mask to this guy, and the one it adds is white. If you then throw this layer mask away, which I'm going to do, just drag the layer mask down to the garbage, you will get this window, and it'll say, do you want to apply, delete, or cancel this? We're going to avoid this dialogue right now. I'm going to show it to you in huge way in just a second. But I'm going to hit cancel. I'm not cancel. I'm just going to hit delete. Do not hit apply. You rarely, if ever, use apply. That's actually just a preview of what's to come. So I'm going to just hit delete. I just want to get rid of it. So if now you come back, if you hold down your option key and you click on add layer mask, it'll add a black one. And now what has happened is, if you take a look at your mask, the black mask is now hiding all of that castle on that, and what you see is the gradient that's underneath. So the mantra that everybody uses for this, yes?
What's the option key for Windows?
Option key.
Yeah, like Alt.
Oh, Alt, sorry, the Alt key. We are a village here, aren't we, right? I mean, fuck, getting through all of this, both OSs. I mean, it's two keys, right? And they have done this shit for 40 years, and no one will budge. I would be thrilled to call mine Control Alt. Thrilled to avoid this, but yeah.
Wait, so how did you do that?
So then hold down the Alt and then just click on the add layer mask, and it'll give you a black one. The thing about it is that there's a million ways to get to that. So we're going to throw the black mask away again. We're not going to apply it. We are going to delete it. And then I'm going to simply add, without the modifier key, another mask. It'll be a white one, so click on that. It adds a white one, but now you'll notice that the mask is what has actually got the white border around it. So when you first start working with masks and pixel content, so that's what I'll always talk about, this is image, pixel content. This is a mask, not pixel content. Well, it is, but anyway, pixel content's always going to refer to the image. Mask will always be the mask. You can invert your mask. Really simple to do. If you look up at your properties panel, there's an invert button right here. If you click on it, it simply inverts it. So what was a white mask is now a black mask. So again, the trick to this is, or the mantra that everybody uses on this is, white reveals, black conceals. So in this case, with a black mask on it, it is completely hiding the castle. If I hit this invert button again, you'll see my mask goes white, and it shows it in its entirety. So again, white reveals, black conceals. That is the essence of a mask, but it gets deeper than that. There's another keyboard shortcut that you can use to do this inversion. You don't have to go to this part right here. With the mask selected, and you can see it's got the borders around it. Hang on one second. Okay. With the borders around it, you just hit Command-I. That's the keyboard shortcut for invert. And this will invert anything. It'll invert images. It will not invert selections. We will talk about that today. But it does invert. It'll invert if you do it on the castle, it'll invert it. When we were actually working with Smart Object Introduction, we inverted the car. Remember, the red car turned into a cyan car because we inverted it. And this continually works. Command-I will invert it again and bring it back to what it was. So that's the basic essence of the beginning of masking. But I want to go in here a little bit deeper. If you hit the B key to get a brush, you'll actually hover over your screen. I'm not pressing down on any of this now. I'm not actually making any marks in here. But again, I told you this last week, every time we select a tool, your eyes need to go up to the very top, this very top bar at Photoshop. When I hit the brush key up here, these are where all the options exist for how I control my brush. If I hit the V key, which is the move tool, you'll see all of this shit changes up here at the top. It just starts going into auto select and do you want to show layers and show transform tools. If I hit the B key, it goes back. If I hit the S key, it'll change for my clone stamp options. If I hit the J key, it will actually change to my healing brush options up here. So again, every time you hit a new, or you don't even have to hit the keyboard shortcuts, you come over here and you pick a keyboard shortcut, your eyes need to go up here because we need to talk about how the controls exist up here, how these things actually function. So I'm at the B key to go back to the brush, and for me, I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna start on the options, not all the way over at the little house, not at this one next to it, the brush that's actually next to it with the drop-down menu. This is where you can build preset brushes and save them. So you can build your own brushes and save them here. We're not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to the next one over that looks like, it's supposed to look like the small little dot at the top is supposed to be a brush. So if you click on this drop-down menu, you will actually see in this drop-down menu, at the very top, you can change your size here. I do not use this to change the size of my brush. I use the bracket keys that are just to the right of the P key. That doesn't mean you can't use this menu. It's just that the bracket keys are faster and easier and quicker. Some of you who have been doing Photoshop for a while know that you can do a heads-up display. There are keyboard combinations that you can use to then use your mouse to click and drag your cursor on your image that will change the size of your brush or the hardness of your brush. I don't use those either. So again, that's just more clutter for me to try to remember. So at any rate, I don't care how you change the size of your brush. You can do it any way that you want to. I'm not going to ding you for any of those because in the end, it gets us to the same place. Underneath that is hardness of your brush. And hardness of your brush, again, is exactly what it is. It's how hard or soft the brush is. So if you crank your hardness all the way up to 100%, you will have a completely hard edge brush. And the brush size that you see on your screen, the outline you see on your screen, will map exactly to what the brush is as it gets played out. Don't worry, we're going to look at this in just a second. If you go all the way to the opposite end of this, down to hardness, where the hardness is 0, that means it's a very soft brush. And in that case, the center of this brush will be, if we were, for instance, to paint with black right now, which is what I'm getting ready to do, the center of it will be extremely hard, but as you start to move to the edges of the brush begins to fade out. And then when you get to the very edge of the brush, where that circle is where it drops off. And anything beyond that circle, the brush is not having any impact at all. So this is what a lot of people will actually use in here. There's also a set of preset brushes that exist right down underneath this that you can click. Most of the people that I know, and people use this all the time, especially if you're working with a tablet, will go back to a legacy set of brush defaults. Now, in this case, if you look at this right now, there's a slider menu that you can drop down. This is just a set of brushes that are in here. I actually want to go to an older set of brushes. If I scroll down in here, I've actually got them already in mine. It's called Legacy Brushes. You will probably not have that unless you've loaded it. If you want to get them, and again, this is not hypercritical because you can adjust your brush yourself. But if you do want to get to the legacy brushes, you come up to the little gear that's in the top right-hand corner and you click on this and you can come down and you can say, I want to import brushes, I think. Oh no, this is actually at the very bottom, legacy brushes. This is where you go. So many people do this that they've actually made it a menu item here, and you simply click on legacy brushes and then it will add that group to your menu right here. Once you click these things open, they're sticky, so they'll actually stay in place during restarts of Photoshop. So you would never lose the legacy brushes, but it's not going to reset and come up to this other new set of brushes that exist up here right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the legacy brushes, and then you will see that there is a default set of brushes. I'm going to open that up, and this is my default brushes. If we open up this panel right here, you can actually see this is them right here. Oh, this thing that's up at the top, these guys are no longer, what these are the most recent brush tools that you've actually used. So this is forever changing. I would suggest you ignore those things at the top. You can use these 6 brushes right here. So this is, I'm just making my screen taller so that you can see it. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'm going to tell you not to use any of them. But at any rate, so on the very top one, what this is it is a completely soft brush, and that's it. the pressure of your tablet, or your tablet has no control on anything else. So no matter how hard you press on your tablet, it will paint this brush. Again, it's a completely zero soft edge. If you go to the one underneath it, it's a completely hard edge. You'll notice that the only thing that changed on this screen was my hardness went from 0 up to 100. If you click on the next one down, though, this changes. And if you take a look at the outline of it, what this is it's going to go back to this soft brush, this completely soft brush, but now the pressure of your tablet will control the size of the brush. So you can see a very soft pressure is a very small brush. As you start to press harder, your brush will get completely big. It's still always soft. And then as you start to lighten your pressure, it goes back to being incredibly small. So in this case, this is a soft brush where size is controlled by pressure. And you'll see it says that right down here, soft round, pressure, size. The one that's underneath it, the only thing that changes, if you click on it, is you'll see that the hardness goes all the way up to 100%. In this case, the pressure still controls the size, soft to large. So when you're doing things like trying to create eyelashes, these tools are really they're great to use, because as you stroke along, if you loosen up the amount of pressure, your brush will actually taper to the end, which is exactly what happens with eyelashes or with facial hair, all of that. Those are not cylinders. Those actually taper off at the end. So these can mimic those sorts of things really well. If you go down to the last two that would be used in the general group, there's a soft round one, and in this one, the size does not change with pressure, the opacity changes. So if you start out and you're gonna paint 100% black on an image, and you start with a very light pressure, it may only put down 10% black, which would be a very, very light gray, or 50% black, which would be a middle gray. Or if you put down full pressure, it'll put down 100% black, and therefore you'll see it as it's solid black. So this is a soft brush that controls opacity, and then underneath it is the hard brush. Again, it's just about the edges where the pressure controls the opacity. My suggestion to you when you start out is you only use these two, if anything. So I'm going to select the soft round brush at the very top, and you'll see it does not change the size of my brush. It just sets the hardness to 0. But look what happens. I'm going to change my hardness using the slider at the top. If I click on my slider and I drag it all the way up to hard, you will see it puts this warning box around the soft brown round brush, because this brush is still selected, but I went in and changed the hardness. So I don't know why they do it this way, but I guess the real reason they do it this way is that you can have hardnesses in between. So you can set a 50% hardness or 75% hardness or 20%. You can control how hard that edge is or how soft that edge is, and this will always give you the warning. However, when I click on the hard brown brush, you'll see it resets it to completely 100% hard. But again, if I change the opacity, you'll get the warning around this. My suggestion to you is that you pick the top one, it doesn't matter which one you use, and then you ignore this shit forevermore. Do not deal with these things. We deal with these two controls here. Frankly, the only control that I deal with is the hardness. I control my size by using the bracket keys, and the brush hardness, I just come in here. I don't care which one of these. What I do not want to have happen is that I don't want to accidentally click on one of the other 4 brushes, because that will cause my tablet to then either control the opacity or the size of my brush as well, and I don't want that to happen. I much rather control opacity and size using the Photoshop controls, because these things are very obvious to me, and I can go in and reset them and change them and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to set the soft round brush. We're fine as far as that part goes. However, I am going to change it to 100% hard. So I want everybody to create a 100% hard brush. Again, if black is not your foreground color, hit the D key to get them to default. Oh, to get rid of this drop-down menu, because you'll hear, I just hit the D key and it makes this noise. We need to get rid of this fly-out menu. A lot of people make the mistake of coming over to their image and clicking. If you come over to your image and click, you will get rid of that drop-down menu, but you will also put a mark on your image, and you don't want to do that until you're ready to do that. So to avoid that, come up to the word that says Adobe Photoshop at the very top and simply click up there. It will not change anything. It won't put a mark on your image. It won't change any of your options. It gets rid of the flyout menu, and you are now good to go. So I have got a white mask that is on this castle. It's, again, white reveals. It's showing the entire castle. I do have black as my foreground color. My blending mode for this brush is set to normal. We'll talk about why that is later today. It's also 100% opacity and 100% flow. Those are the things that I care about right now. The smoothing in this is set to a 10% default. We will talk about what that is much later on, as well as the other controls that are sitting out here on the far side out here. So I'm going to come down onto my image right now, and I've got a black brush, and I'm going to simply click and paint around. And what you can see now is that in this mask, I have put down black. And where it is black, it is hiding the castle, but what's underneath the castle shows through. Does this make sense, everybody, what's going on here? If you hit the X key, you will flip your colors from black to white and then paint over this same area. And you can see, because I am painting with white now, I am showing now in that area where I just painted, I am showing the castle and hiding the gradient that's underneath it. And you can do that all the way to all of this. If you then hit the X key and go back to doing your black on this, you can see I'm actually just doing different shapes. This is now what shows in this. If you hold down your Option key or Alt key and click on the actual mask itself, it'll show you the mask. This is what it looks like. And you can see the areas in this that are white are actually showing the castle. The areas that are black are showing the gradient that's underneath this. You can actually invert this. So if you hit Command I, they flip. And if we go back and click on the castle part of your image, you will actually see that this thing has flipped. The problem with that is that when I clicked on the castle part of my image to see this all together again, you'll see that the border lines went around the castle now. They are now on the pixel part. So now when I paint with my black brush, I'm actually painting on the castle layer itself. If you want to then see what that looks like without the layer mask, you hold down the Shift key and click on your layer mask, and it will hide it. And you will see that you just put this big black hunk of paint on your castle layer right here instead of working on the mask, because the border was around the pixel guy. So when I painted, it painted on the pixel, on the castle layer, not on the mask. So I'm going to go back in history to when I inverted this thing. I'm going to go back. So again, I'm looking at my history tab. Here, one step back is the brush tool that I just disabled the layer mask. That's what's here. Right before that was when I painted on the castle. Right before that was when I inverted the mask. Right behind that is where I actually made the initial brush mark. And you can see my borders are now going around my castle again, so I can continue to work on that part. Is this making sense to everyone? Questions about this? Who have I lost? Okay, this is not the only thing that you can do. You can actually do all sorts of filters on your masks. So for instance, make sure that you've got the border going around the layer mask. Come up to the filter menu, down to blur, down to Gaussian blur, and woo, that's pretty serious blur on that. I'm gonna set mine down to 0. Or close to 0, and you can see I have no impact on it all because I'm not blurring it at all. But as you start to crank your blur up, those edges start to get softer and softer and softer, and as I continue to go, they get softer and softer. If you want to see what's really happening here, go ahead and say OK to that. You can click and go ahead and blur it. Hold down your Option key, click on the mask, and you will see it. I've now gone from this like super blur to not. You can still go back in history and look at the difference in this. If I click one step back in history, this is when I put the brush tool down. This is what the blur did, and you can see the impact. If you turn on your eyeball for this, for the image layer right here, again, you've still got the borders that are going around your layer mask, so that part's working. You can still go back and forth between these two, and you can see that that's actually what's going on. You can transform layer masks, you can fade layer masks, you can do all of those things exist in here in terms of what we're doing here. So I just wanted everybody to realize that part of it. There's also controls in the properties panel for your layer mask. So I've gone back into history right before I did that blur, so it's not there. There's a way to do non-destructive blurs and that kind of stuff on your layer mask. If you click on the layer mask, make sure that you got the borders around it. You will see in the properties panel right here, it shows that the properties panel panel is impacting the layer mask. So you can control the density of your mask. This is not the opacity of the layer, this is the density of the mask. So as you start to drag the density down, you'll notice that the black of your layer mask starts to fade out, and so does its impact on the image. So when I get back to like down to 50%, what this is now doing is it's now an image in the area where the mask is. It's half the castle and half the gradient, because I'm seeing halfway through it. Again, hold down your Option key and click on this, and you can see it's now a middle gray. If I drag the density all the way down, the mask, you don't see the mask here at all. So it's basically the same impact as looking at the image itself with no mask on it. If you crank the density all the way back up though, the mask is still there. The same thing with feathering. If you click on the feather and you drag, again, make sure that you got the brackets around the mask, not your image. If you click on the feather and drag it up, it also is a blur. But the advantage of this over doing the filter is that this is sticky. So when you close your file, save your file, close it, open it back up, the density of the filtering of this mask will still be at this 30, in my case it was 34.6. You can still modify this back down to 0. So it allows you, again, it's a non-destructive move for blurring masks and doing that kind of stuff. So questions about this part? Okay, so this is the part I need everybody to pay special attention to, and as soon as we get through this, and it will be quick, we'll take a quick break. I'm going to throw this mask away, so I need everybody to throw their mask away. So just grab the layer mask, drag it down to the garbage can that's down at the bottom, and this dreaded window will open up. Well, it's not a dreaded window, it's only dreaded if you don't know what you're doing. And for some reason, every single person at Columbia College Chicago in the photography department has been told that they should apply this mask. So I want you to go ahead and apply the mask just to see what happens that's wrong. So go ahead and apply the mask. You can see that the mask is now gone, but if you click on the eyeball for the gradient that's underneath this to see what's left, this is a destructive move. You have now thrown those pixels away. And if you save this image and close it, there's no way to get them back. Why would you do that? The mask was doing the same thing. You can leave the mask there from now until the end of time and nothing will change. This changes everything. You can't recover from this. I can't amend this. I can't change this. I can't refine this. I can't do anything with it. All I did was fuck up my image. And that happens over and over and over. There's no reason to apply a mask. You've got it, it's fine, everything's great, but people drag this shit down all the time. I don't know, maybe you're trying to make it, I don't know, the layer palette less confusing or something, but this is destructive, and I will ding you every single time for this. I give you like 1 or 2 shots of doing this, but if I see this happen come the middle of the semester, I'll flunk you outright for the assignment for this. You cannot work this way. There's not any recovery from this other than going back and starting the whole process all over again. And if this is the only copy that you have of this file, you just ruined it. No one should work that way, right? I know I sound like I'm a crazy guy right now, but anyway, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. For the time being right now, though, we are lucky. We have not closed this thing and saved it, so we actually can go back in time to before we applied the layer mask. So I'm going to go back to where it was in the very beginning. We're going to do that same move again. So I've brought my layer mask back. I've still got my whole image. You can take a look at the pixel image. It's all still back. I'm going to throw this thing away again. The box comes up again. And in this case, I can say, well, I just want you to delete the mask or to cancel this. Delete will get rid of the mask, but it doesn't apply it. It's non-destructive, but it's gone. If I hit Command Z to undo that, it brings it back. If I throw it away one last time to look at our last option in here, it's like, oh, I didn't want to do that at all. Hit cancel and nothing happens. It cancels you dragging that thing to the trash. Does this make sense to everyone what's going on? Okay, final thing that I want to talk about here really quickly, and then I swear we will take a break. If you take a look at the layer mask and the image content down at the bottom, you will see that there's this little thing that separates them. It's actually the same little symbol that they used when we did the transforms last week when we were talking about smart objects. It's a chain link, and what it's meant to be is if you click on this whole layer, whether it's the mask or the image, it doesn't matter which one, if you hit the V key, you'll get the move tool, and you can click on this thing and you can move it around. But you'll notice that the mask and the image in the background are locked together. So when I move the background, I move the mask as well. And you can actually see it happen in real time on this layer. If you hit Command Z and undo that, now we're going to actually break the chain link. So I'm going to click on that right between, so it's the icon that's right between the mask and the image content. If I click on that, the chain link disappears. And now, because I have the brackets or the border that's around the image content, now when I click on the move tool and move it around, you will see that the image moves, but the mask doesn't. My mask is not changing, and you'll notice that here, you can actually see it in real time. The image moves, but the mask doesn't. If I hit Command Z to undo that and click on the mask instead and move it, I can then move this, and you will see the castle is not moving, but the mask is. We use this to actually do fine-tune compositing selections all the time, because a lot of times when you're trying to do things like fix holes of hair that are on a forehead or something like that, you'll actually put a patch in place that actually does the job, but then to fine tune it, but you can't see them together. And so to fine tune it, you just start painting randomly in the mask where you think it is supposed to be, and then you'll see, and you can then fine tune everything by being able to move the mask independent or the pixel content independent of the mask. You can actually change those. You can also go back in this and click on that same area and reestablish the link. And when you reestablish the link, then everything moves together. It all stays connected. Are we good on all of this? All right. I'm going to call this 210. Make it a hard 10, guys. Be back at 220, and we'll keep going. Move on. All right, so if we go back to this very same image that we've been working on right here, again, we've talked in this class before about, we just were introduced to it really quickly last week, so with smart objects. So the easiest way that there is to make a selection of anything is to hover over the thumbnail, hold down your Command or Control key, and click on it. So I want to reload, what I want to do is I want to load this mask right here as a selection. To do that, you hover over the thumbnail. So you see my cursor is now over the thumbnail of the mask. You do not want to be on the image. You don't want to be on the layer. You want to be over the thumbnail. The same thing holds true if you're going to actually load. You will see that this layer mask is also sitting over here in your channels palette. It's temporary right now, and you should just be aware of this part right here. The reason it's visible right now is because I've got this layer selected. If I click on the other layer underneath it, it's no longer visible in here. It's actually a part of it, but it's not visible because I don't have the layer selected. When I select the layer, you'll notice that it shows up again. Photoshop used to be better about this. It's not that this is a temporary mask, it's not always constantly in place here in channels. They used to make this italics. It would be written in italics. Now what they do is they actually throw this like little slash mark against it, and that's somehow supposed to indicate to you that it's just because you've got this layer visible. But regardless, hover over the thumbnail of the layer mask. You'll see right now I've got the pixel content of this is selected. That does not matter. It's whatever thumbnail you hover over. So I'm going to hover over the thumbnail of the mask. I'm going to hold down the Command key, and you'll notice that the little display thing, yellow display thing would go away. That your cursor changes to a hand with a little square with marching ants around it. If you click on this now, you'll see that you get the marching ants that are going now around this, around the edge of the layer mask itself. masks and selections are interchangeable. You can create a selection from a mask and a mask from a selection. You can do either one of those things. So this is actually now created a selection here, but what I wanted you to realize is that now I'm going to hit the B key again, which will give is my paintbrush. I am going to select the layer mask to actually change this part of it. Actually, I take it back. I'm going to select the image content of this. So I've got an active selection going. I'm going to actually change the image content of this. So I've got black as my foreground color. I've got a brush. That's what I'm going to actually paint with. And now if I actually click through this, you will actually see that because the mask is what is selected now, and that is seriously not working the same way it should, probably because I've got this layer mask part selected. So hold that thought. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo all of that. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect that. I'm going to hide my mask by holding down the Shift key and clicking on it. You'll see it puts a red X on it, so I don't see it anymore. If I click on it again, I'll get the red X back, but I'm going to click on this so I don't see it anymore. I still have the layer mask in my channels palette. I'm going to hover over that thumbnail and do a Command click. And now I've got the, is this just like an obscene shape that I've got in my layer mask right now? Pretty much, right? I'm just going to carry through this and be done with it, and we'll move on. That was unintentional, but anyway. It makes me think of the logo for Amazon. Actually makes me just think of Amazon. So with the selection going right here, I'm working on my pixel content layer. Black is my foreground color, and I'm just going to start to paint. And again, it's doing the same thing. So we're going to completely get away from this. Command D to deselect. I'm going to throw this layer mask completely away. You do not need to apply it. You're just going to delete it. And I've screwed up my whole selection part now here because I've painted on it. So I'm going to go back in history to where I loaded this selection, and then Command D to deselect, and then throw this whole thing away and delete it. So I'm just going to build my own selection right now. I'm going to hit the L key, which is the lasso key, and I'm just going to make some weird shape in my image. So I've got an active selection going on here, and this is one of the key things about Photoshop that you've got to remember. I'm going to hit my B key now to get a brush. And what you have to realize is that with an active selection going, it will restrict where all of your tools are able to work. So I have a black brush going on right now. I've got an active selection going. I'm working on my pixel layer of the castle. I'm going to click and drag, and you will see that the only place that I can actually paint on this is inside that selection. That selection is controlling where I can actually be and where I can't, where I can actually lay down ink, or where I can clone, or where I can blur, or where I can do anything. Anything that you do in Photoshop with an active selection going is going to be restricted. Does this make sense, everyone? Are we good on this part? All right, I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. You can invert selections. So we've got an active selection going, and you'll notice there are no marching ants that are going around the outside. It's just the ones in the middle. And again, if I click across, it's restricting where it will go, only to the middle here. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. If you want to do the inverse selection, not the inverse of your image, but the inverse of the selection, you come up to the Select menu down to Inverse. And when you do that, you'll notice that the selection shape in the middle doesn't change at all, but you now have a set of marching ants that are going around the outside. And now when you paint, you'll see that the area that was inside of the selection is now the area that's actually outside. And so now it is protected. So you use selections to either do protections or to do restrictions of areas that you actually want to be painted in. I'm going to do Command Z one more time, and the last thing I'm going to do is you'll see I have got an active selection going. When you have an active selection going and you add a layer mask, it will actually use this selection to build the layer mask. So if I come down here, I've got, again, the marching ants are going. They're going around the whole image right now, so it is the outside. If I then click on Add Layer Mask, you can see what the layer mask actually does. It actually, the selected area in the center is actually visible, and the outside area is not. Now, if for some reason you wanted the exact opposite of this, you didn't want the thing that now looks like a shoe to be selected, you wanted to actually do the opposite of it, so make sure that your layer mask is selected with a border around it and simply invert it, Command I. And now you can see what is now masked is, or what's showing is that little bit of the castle or the field that's there, whatever, and then the grid on the outside, or the gradient that's underneath, is actually showing through. Are we good on all this? Okay. How many people got in this class because they have trouble selecting hair? Or let me rephrase that. How many people in this class, or who are in this class, have trouble selecting hair? Does that ever become important for anything you're trying to do? Yeah, because when it comes to compositing, it'll be huge. Well, today you're going to learn how to do it. So you're going to learn several ways of doing it, but that's how we go. If you've done all of this now, great. I want you to throw away the whole layer of the castle that's on the top. We're just going to start working with the gradient by itself. So we're going to go through the selection tools really quickly. I just want to make sure most of you are pretty comfortable about using this stuff. There's a few tricks that I do want to show you. We're going to blow through these tools pretty quickly, and we're going to get more into the local AI selection tools, and then also the cloud AI selection tools. We're going to look at all of that stuff today. So today's all about selections, and then hopefully at the very end we are going to build really complex luminosity masks, and if you don't know what that is, that's okay. All right, so we're going to start at the very top. If you take a look at your tools bar at the tool panel on the left-hand side, all the way on the left-hand side, at the very top is the move tool. Again, the key that we keep hitting is the V key to actually get that tool, but that's what it is. The one that's right underneath it is the first of the selection tools. It is the marquee selection tool. There are several tools that are underneath this thing that are inside this icon. To get to any of the multiple tools that are in the icon, you click on the lower right-hand corner of the icon, and you'll get a flyout menu. And you can see we can do the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool, the single row, and the single column tool. So we're going to start with the one at the very top, the rectangular marquee tool. And again, immediately you should take a look up at the very top in your options bar. This thing is completely changed to do options for the marquee tool. So we can start over here. There's several icons. We will look at what those are later. Right now, 99% of the time, you're going to just leave it at the selection that it actually is. There is a feathering on this. We'll look at what feathering is in just a second. And then there's 3 styles that you can do in here. We'll take a look at all of those. So to start with this, I'm simply going to come into the middle of my image. Now, depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed or however you work, I typically start in the upper left-hand corner, and I click and I drag down to the lower right-hand corner. So I just need you to make a selection. I don't care what it is, just make a quick selection and get some marching ants going on in the middle. So when we have this thing now in the middle, if you click in the middle, you can actually move it around. You cannot start the selection part again. You can't like grab it and get it to go again. If you do, like I just did, you'll see it gets rid of the original marching ants and it starts a brand new set for you. So that's not how you actually would do that part. So I'm going to click and pull out another big gradient again. I mean a big marquee selection. You can save these. Again, selections can be saved. So up to the select menu, and please do this because we're going to use multiple versions of these. I want you to save this selection. So just come down to the bottom of the select menu, do save selection, and call it rectangle 1, REC1, and say OK. And if you look at the very bottom of your channels palette, you'll see that there's a thing called Rec1. If I hit Command D now to deselect it, it goes away. But if I hover over the thumbnail of Rec1 down in my channels palette, hold down the Command key and click, it loads it again. Then, yes?
Why can't I see what's in my channels?
I'm sorry, what?
I can't see what's in my channels.
Oh, it's because you have no room in here for it. So you're going to click, put your cursor right between, see where the channel is tab, there's a tab up in here. You want to put it right in the middle. Go that way a little bit. No, let go. You're going to put it right here. You'll see when you hover right in the middle here. No, it's not want to do that. Let me see what happens if we set yours, if it got set up right to begin with. If you go to your workspace now and do a reset on your retouching space, now you can see it. yours is set to fixed size in your style. That needs to go back. So it's trying to do this 11 by 18, go back to normal. Hit Command D to deselect and it'll work. Okay, Command D to deselect this. And I want to do another selection. I want it to overlap the one you did. So I'm going to start in the middle of mine, and I'm just going to click and pull all the way over to the side edge that's all the way over on the far right-hand side. Just a completely different space with a little bit of overlap, and I'm also going to save that. So up to the select menu, down to save selection, and we're going to call this Rec 2. And say OK. Command D to deselect. I'm going to double click on the hand again. It'll reset this. So now I want to actually join selections together. So this is the way you build complex selections out of multiple pieces. So to do this, come up to your select menu, come down to load selection, and in the drop-down menu for channel, we're going to pick Rec 1. And you'll see down here in the operations, by default, you have new selection, and then everybody else is grayed out. If you hit OK to that, it puts the original one back in. But now I want to combine it. I want to combine the second one we did with this one. To do that, go back up to the select menu, down to load selection, and now in your drop-down menu, come down and do Rec 2. And now you have options. You can add this to the current selection. So if you click on the add button, if you just click new selection, the original one that we have going on right now will simply disappear, and you'll have the Rec 2 marching ants going on in the bottom. But in this case, I want them to interact. So I'm going to click add to selection and say OK. And you can see it is now stair steps this down. It's put them together. And so the areas that are common are a part of this, and then you have an entire new outline on this. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that, and then we're going to do the other interactions as well. Up to the select menu, down to load selection, in the drop-down menu, Rec 2, and in this case, I'm going to say subtract from the selection. So click on that and say OK, and you'll see it does a carve out of where that second selection was. And now I've got this L-shaped selection. Command Z to undo that. And then finally, the last one in here, up to the select menu, down to load selection, is intersection. And what this does is what remains as a selection will be only the areas that were common to both of them. So if I click OK, that didn't work because I didn't have it right. Load selection, drop-down menu, Rec 2, intersect, and OK. And you can see the only thing is left is that small little area where both of the original selections actually covered this. So Command D to deselect. Hit the M key to make sure you have the marquee tool. If you click and drag the marquee tool out, you can see you can make any sort of rectangle. If you want this to be a square, you add the Shift key, and this will restrict the width and the height so that they remain completely the same the whole time. So that's a quick way to pull squares out. Command D to deselect. If we pull one more out, I'm going to pull a square out, you can actually transform selections. So you remember I said you can't make this thing bigger or smaller. That's actually, you can move it around, but that's actually not true. You can make it bigger and smaller. Most of you are used to doing transforms from the edit menu. And if you come up here and do try to do a transform here and click on it, well, this is also changed in Photoshop. You used to never be able to do a transform selection right here. I'm going to hit the circle at the very top in my options bar that's got the slash through it. That will actually get rid of the selection or my last move. It used to be, and it probably still is, you had to go to the select menu to get to the transform tools for a selection. So up to the select menu, and you can see transform selection. I kind of wish they kept it the old way, but clearly they haven't. So then this will allow you, again, up in your menu bar right now, you've got transform is still set to the controls that we used before. So if you click on the link between width and height, you can then hover over the H key to make it bigger or smaller. You can do all of that kind of stuff. You can move this whole thing around. You can actually grab corners and make them larger or smaller. You can do all of those sorts of things. But the real power of transforming selections, I think, is this warp tool right here. So if you take a look at my screen, on the right-hand side of the options, before you get to the circle that will nullify your last movement here, there's this weird tennis-y, I always think of it as a tennis net, I don't really know what it is, but nonetheless, it's that thing. It's really, I think, supposed to be graph lines. If you click on that, you'll see that it puts a series of divider lines on your image or on your selection right now. And now you can actually click and you can modify these. There are control handles for all of this stuff. So I can actually make circles out of my image. I can completely change the pattern and the shape of this. And then if I click OK to this, this is now my modified selection. If you then hit Command J, remember Command J is basically a copy and paste. It's how we make duplicate layers because it copies the original layer and then pastes that exact same information into a new layer. If you hit Command J on this one, you'll actually see it just made a copy of that. If you want to load this thing as a selection again, you simply hover over the thumbnail of the layer, hold down your Command key and click, and you get the marching ants are going on it again. So these are ways to modify your selections, to restrict them, to add them, to subtract them, to then create your own layers out of what was selected. All of that kind of stuff is going on in just this small part that we've done right now. Command D to deselect. I'm going to throw away that layer number 1 that I just added. You don't need it. I just wanted to show you that that part actually happens. I want to actually then make a selection right now of just the colors. And the problem is selecting just the colors, if you're using the marquee tool, is as I put my cursor right over, because I'm going to start on the top left edge of where the red is. If you really get to right where that corner is and you go a little bit too far, your cursor actually turns into, it's no longer the marquee selection tool, it is now the cursor tool for Macintosh. It's the arrow that allows you to do other stuff. We are now off of the canvas. We're not on the canvas anymore. I've got rulers that are actually showing on my edges. Does anybody in this room have those as well? Okay. You want your rulers. You're going to use your rulers for the rest of your life. You might as well put them on there now and leave them on there. To get to the rulers, you come up to your View menu and you come down and you'll see there's a rulers thing. Just select it. It'll put a check mark right next to it and you'll get the rulers. If for some reason you want to get rid of the rulers, select rulers again and then that'll get rid of them. But I want them. They're incredibly important for us to have and use. So I'm going to check and put them back on. Now, my rulers are set to give me a readout in pixels. If you want to change the units of measurement, hover over either ruler. There's only one on the top and the left because everything that we need to do with them, we can do with only a top and a left-hand side. If you hover your cursor over the ruler, either one, and hold down your Control key or do a right click if you're on Windows, you will get, you'll see your icon changes and you will get a drop down menu if you click and you can change this and say, I would rather see this in inches or centimeters or millimeters or points, percentages, all that. I leave mine at pixels because pixels are the final dimension, the units in my image. I don't need to worry about resolution when I'm working in pixels because it's just the full number that's there. So I don't need to worry what my resolution is, how many pixels an inch it is. I don't worry about any of those things. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't do inches and that kind of stuff. At times I do, but my default in this is set to pixels. So anyway, I do want to get to that corner that's right up here at the very edge. The problem is, again, if I get up there, that all of a sudden I feel like I'm right on it, I'm ready to go and click, and my cursor turns, it's no longer the marquee tool, it turns back into a normal cursor. So the way to get around that is start in the middle of your image. So take a look at my screen. I'm going to start in the middle of this red square right here, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag down and keep your hand down on your mouse. My mouse, I have not let go of my mouse now. So I can move this, I can change this again, but you'll see that upper left-hand point is fixed because that's where I started. But now if you add the space bar, you can move this whole thing around, and I'm going to jam it right up into that corner so that I get the top of the red, and if you keep pushing it as far as you want to towards the left, it's never going to go outside of your image. That is now anchored right on the edge of your image. Then let go of your space bar and you can complete the selection of your image and you can come down now. And in this case, I'm letting go in my lower right-hand corner. I've completely selected all of the color in this. Command J will jump that to its own layer and you can just see. So this is how you can reposition marquee tools, and this works with a lot of the other selection tools as well to actually get incredibly precise in terms of doing this kind of stuff. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that again. I'm going to throw away that second layer again. We're going to go to the next tool in the marquee group. Oh, wait, we're going to stay here in the marquee group tool. You can also do different types of selections. So if you come over to the style of the marquee tool and you click this and you go from normal down to fixed ratio, and I'm going to put in a 1:1. What that means is that for every point pica pixel that I select of width, it will select the same thing for height. And so now when I click and pull out, I can only pull squares out because this is all a 1:1. Command D to deselect. You can actually change this fixed ratio. I'm going to now change mine to 10:8. What this will be is 8 inches high, 10 inches wide. And now when I click and drag this out, it restricts it to an 8:10. So the reason I use this is I prefer this tool to the crop tool when I want to do fixed sizes. So I can do the 8:10 trick. I can still do the, again, I've just started my selection. I've never let go. I can still do my spacebar trick and put it up in the very top left edge of this and then drag down to the very bottom. I really wish, there's a setting that I have not set on mine to keep this from going beyond my image like that, because there's no reason for me to travel beyond my image like that. But again, every new version of Photoshop fucks everything up. But nonetheless, the reason I say this is better than the crop tool is that this allows you to visually see what it is you really want to do. It keeps it to that ratio. And then if you now click on the crop tool, which is the 5th tool down, it looks like these slider things. It's supposed to be 2 L squares that you can actually move. That's the crop tool. If you click on that tool, you will see that changes. The crop tool is now in the options bar. You get the crop handles that are around it, but you'll also see in the drop-down menu, it refers to, okay, we're going to crop this based on the selection. And then again, if you hit your return key to or your enter key, it'll actually do the crop preview, and then hit it again, and you've actually cropped your image. It's just easier and faster for me to actually do that tool than to get into all the cropping handles. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's how I'm going to do it. Command Z to undo that. Let's go back in time to where we just had the delete layer, anything that's going on back in here. Double click on the hand to get back to it. So I just want to get back to this guy. We're going to look at the next tools in the group down. So if you go to the next one, the elliptical marquee tool, you can actually click and drag out, and you'll notice that you do get an ellipse. If you click and drag top left to lower right, you get a horizontal ellipse. If you let go, Command D to deselect. If you click and drag straight down, you actually get a vertical ellipse. Command D to deselect. If you hold down your shift key and you click and drag out, you will actually get a circle. So that's all ways to just restrict those. The one thing that I find most useful in this, I'm going to hit Command D to deselect, is to show you how to target a circle right on a single point. This also works for the square marquee tool as well. To find the square point the exact point that I want to start this on, I'm going to hover over my ruler at the top. Does everybody have their ruler showing? Because otherwise this is not going to work. So again, if you don't have your ruler showing, view menu, rulers. If you come up and you click on the top ruler and pull down, you will pull down what's called a guideline. And I'm going to bring it down right into the center of the green. You'll also notice that as I get close to the center of the green, it'll actually snap. It's snapping to the middle of this image and let go. And that puts down, it's a cyan line, which is sort of hard to see on this green, but nonetheless, that's what it is. You'll see the other line. I'm gonna do the same thing from the left side. I'm gonna click and drag and pull a line out sort of towards the middle. And as I get close to the middle, it will actually snap in place. So these are guidelines. They do not print. They do not show up in your image. If we were to print this thing out, you don't see these things. These are non-printable marks, whatever. They're simply marks to help you do work actually in Photoshop. So if I now hover over the edge of that intersection, I'm going to put my cursor right in the center part of that, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag out. You can see my ellipse starts at that corner. That's not what I want to do. I want my ellipse to actually be at the center of that. So if you hit Command D to deselect, put your cursor on the center again, and this time you're going to hold down, I don't ever remember this. I think it's the Option key, and click and drag out. It is the Option key. And now you will see that you're pulling this out from the center. If you continue to drag it out, we get an ellipse, but if you add the Shift key to that, you get a circle. And this is how you would center a perfect circle centered on exactly that single pixel point in the middle of my image. And then again, if I let go on this, I've got a circle that's perfectly centered. Command J will actually give me a version of this that's perfectly centered, and you're off to the races. Command Z to undo that so that I've still got my layer jumped. I'm going to throw that guy away. To get rid of the guidelines, you have two options. You can actually hit the V key to get the move tool, and if you hover your move tool over the guideline, you'll get a double-headed arrow. You can actually move this. You can drag it actually back onto the ruler, and you'll get rid of it. The other way to get rid of it is actually to click on the View menu, come down to Guides, down to Clear Guides. So look up at my menu, View menu, down to Guides, Clear Guides, and it gets rid of them. If you pull another guide out, let's just pull a guide out and leave it in the very top of the gradient. If you do not want to see, and let's actually do a selection as well. So again, go back to your selection tool, because we had the move tool selected then so that we could get rid of it, and just pull out a gradient, pull out a selection. I don't care what it is. So right now I've got a guide, and I've got some marching ants. If you hit Command H, mine disappear, but the first time you do this, a dialog will open up and say, what do you want to hide? Do you want to hide Photoshop or do you want to hide the extras? You want to pick hide the extras, because what extras are things like marching ants, guidelines, those types of things. They are now hidden. However, they are still in effect. The selection that you make now will be sticky. If you've made the wrong selection, you have to reload a new set of preferences for Photoshop. You need to reset your preferences to get the opportunity to then pick the correct one, which is hide extras. If you hit Command H again, you'll see they come back. They never went away. Command H to hide them again. I'm going to hit the B key to get a brush to paint. Black is my foreground color, and you can now see I'm painting with hidden marching ants. The reason this matters to us is there are times where we get so specific about where we need to be, the marching ants actually hide the edge we're trying to find. So if you simply hide them, they still will do their job, but they're not in your way. So Command Z to undo that, Command H to bring back the marching ants in the guidelines, Command D to get rid of the selection, and then up to the View menu, down to Guides and Clear Guides to get rid of the guide that's on the top. So this gets us through the majority of the manual selection tools. There's one last one. The lasso tool. If you come down to the lasso tool group, that's the one that's right underneath the marquee tool version. There's a selection brush we will look at much later. There's the lasso tool, which we pick. Again, it's just freeform lasso selection. If you want to add to selection, and this is true of all the selection tools, you hold down, if we don't hold down anything and we just start another selection, the original selection goes away and we get a new one. And I can click over here and I get another one. So every time I do this, the original one goes away and a new one starts. If you want to add to the original one, you don't want to get rid of it, you simply want to add to it, you hold down the Shift key and you'll see that your cursor changes to, there's a little plus in the lower corner, lower right hand corner of this. Now you can actually add to the selection, and you can continue to add to the selection to continue to build anything that you want in here. If you want to get rid of stuff in a selection, you hold down the Option key instead, and you'll see that you get a little minus down at the bottom, and then you can go in and get rid of selection parts. So if you've spent all this time and you've made the perfect selection, but there's one little thing that's wrong with it, you just use this thing to actually clean up your selection. We good on this? Questions? Command D to deselect. There are other lasso tools in here that we don't really use a lot. If you pick on the polygonal lasso tool, I just want to show you what they are really quickly. They do have very limited usage. Most of them have been replaced by more advanced tools. But the polygonal lasso tool, if you simply come out onto your image and click once and then move, you will get this line. I'm not dragging, I'm just moving my cursor. A second click, a third click, a fourth click, a fifth click, a sixth click, 7. You can do this forever. When you get to the last one and you just say, I want to get back to the beginning, you could try to come back here. And when you do get back to the beginning, you'll see your cursor changes to indicate that you are going to complete a selection. Or wherever you are, you simply double click and it will finish it for you. Command D to deselect. The last one down is the magnetic lasso tool. This is a really early version of AI stuff in Photoshop. If it's a brush, so if you get it as a brush, and you'll actually see, I'm going to run it along the edge that where the red is meeting the gradient. If you click here, this is actually going to, and I'm staying as close as I can to being on that edge, you'll see it's laying down points. This is actually creating a path that can be modified. This is not like a typical selection tool. However, if you come up into the gradient area and you start to move this around like this, you'll see it doesn't really know what to do. What it's always looking for is an edge. And if it finds it, it'll lay down 1,000 points here. We use the pen tool in this class, so there's no real reason to use this guy, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood what it was. If you get it back again near to the beginning of where you started and click, it will actually give you a selection of that. Command D to deselect. Make sure that you don't leave these because these are sticky. If you leave your selection set at the magnetic selection tool, that's what you'll always get. Go back to the lasso tool. All right, so this gets us through the beginning part of this. We're going to go to some of the automated selection tools right now. And we've gone through all of that. That part's good. Yeah. So we're going to go through a set of the quick selection tools, and we'll take a quick break and come back, and we'll actually are going to work on our first composite today. So we're going to go. This seems, I know, like we're just cranking through this stuff, but it's important that you know how that it exists and how this stuff works. I'm going to go to the next tool down. If you click on this, this is the object selection tool. We will look at that later. Then there's the quick selection tool, which we used last week to select the sky for the castle image. So you have some idea of what that's all about. Again, do not ever touch the edge you want it to find. Let the tool do its job. But the last one I'm going to go down to is the magic wand. And when you go down to the magic wand, there's two things that happen. The first thing is that it opens up your options bar for the magic wand tool. There's something here you need to change because this impacts a huge number of tools. This actually impacts the color range tool. This impacts a lot of the selection tools. And it's this sample size right here. By default, Photoshop ships this with point sample. That means when you use this tool, if you come down and you select on something in your image, it's going to select a single pixel. And then whatever you've told it to do relative to that single pixel, it will do. But the problem that we have, that we run into that, is that if you have it selected to a single pixel, there are two kinds of errant pixels that exist in every single image. You don't see them because it's only a single pixel, but there are things called dead pixels and hot pixels. A dead pixel is always black, no matter what the image is, and a hot pixel is always white. And if you inadvertently hit one of those when you make this selection, you will get a really perverted you will not get the selection behavior that you anticipated. So instead, you want to click on this drop-down menu here and change it to a 3x3. Some people will use a 5x5. I always thought 3x3 is better. It's more precise than 5x5, but less than a point sample. So what this is now going to do is when I click on a point, it's going to do a 9 square. It's going to select 3 pixel row horizontally and a 3 pixel row vertically. And so those 3x3 together are 9 pixels in total. So the idea that you will likely hit a hot pixel, even if you do, it will be averaged out by the surrounding pixels that are going to select this. So I'm going to use this to set up like this again. I'm now going to leave the tolerance at 32. So when I do that, I'm going to click on the red, and you can see it just makes a perfect selection of this red. If you have a solid graphic element in an image and you want to select it, this tool works great. It works better than all the other selection tools combined. If you come down and click on the blue, you'll see it does the same thing. So what it's doing is it's saying, okay, you can see that I'm hovering over. You'll see a value. If you look at my info palette up here, I'm going to hover over the blue again. You can see I've got a 0 red, 0 green, 255 blue. It's a pure blue. I'm hovering over a pixel that is a pure blue. What this 32 says is that you can go 32 pixels in either direction away from that and still select it. Now, that doesn't make any sense when we're dealing with pure color, but if you hit Command D to deselect, come up into your gradient. And what I want you to do is just hover in your gradient. What I want you to do is find in your info readout where it says 100, 100, 100. This is a little bit darker than middle gray, and I want you to simply click once. And you'll see you get this selection that goes out to both sides. It is now selected 32 pixels lighter than that 100 and 32 pixels darker. That is my tolerance. So if you hover over the very edge on the outside here as we're getting lighter, you can see my readout is now like a 134. It's just because my cursor is not exactly on there. But when I get it right on there, trust me, it's 132. If I go down to the opposite side, it will actually do 32 minus that 100. So that takes me around to a 68. And you can see I'm very close to that part right here. If we jump this to its own layer, Command J, and look at it, you'll see it's a very hard selection on both edges. You'll notice that the edges are a little bit jaggy here. This is because we've actually got this set up to be anti-alazed, which just means that it's designed to actually fit in better with the surrounding area. You will not, if you've got the anti-alaze part off, you'll get these perfectly hard edges, and perfectly hard edges are very easy to spot in Photoshop. So that's basically what's going on here. I'm going to throw that layer away. We're going to do this one more time. You'll notice if I hover over that 100, 100, and 100, when I did that click, what ended up happening was that it selected that range of grays that were only on the top. Well, there's the same range of grays down on the bottom. It did not pick those. The reason it did not is because I have this contiguous check mark on. If you uncheck that contiguous check mark, and then go back and try to find that 100, 100, 100 point again and click, you'll see that you get the boxes on both sides. Anywhere in the image that had tonality that fell into this range would have been selected. So this ends up being a really powerful tool to use. Again, it really lends itself to more hardcore graphic lines than it does anything else. Questions? Command D to deselect. That gets us through this whole group right here. Again, we will go back to object selection later on. I want to do a last couple of the sort of more automated versions of this, and then we will get out of here. Yeah. I'm going to close this up. Guess what image we're going to open up? Red car. So everybody, back to, hopefully it'll still be in your recent thing. I've got 1,000 of mine. They're still in the recent thing. Again, I'm going to double click on the hand to open this guy up. So the last of the tools in this sort of like group, it's the first of the real AI, no, not really the AI tools, although it is analyzing the image, is actually the color range tool. To get to that, it's not in your toolbar at all. It's actually in the select menu. Come up to the select menu and come down to color range. And when you get color range and opens up, you will actually see that there's a very small thumbnail that's really hard to read. There may be some selection already made. Typically what it'll do is whatever your foreground color is the color that's going to be selected. Up in the very top menu, you've got a select drop-down menu. If you click on that, sampled colors is at the very top. This is what most people use. They want to actually pick the colors that they want to sample. Now you can pick canned set of reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, and magentas, but these are colors that are already, color ranges that are already defined by Photoshop. So you only get 6 of them. And in some cases, again, if you're dealing with hardcore graphics, this might work for you. In my case, I would not use them. I would still use sample colors because it lets you pick your own color. Then underneath that, you'll have highlights, midtones, and shadows. Again, there are better ways of doing this, but we will take a look at what those are in just a second. And then finally, skin tones is out underneath this part. Skin tones refer to only Caucasian skin tones. I think this is worthless. It does a worthless job in addition to being a racist tool. So I don't ever use it. Don't suggest you do either. And then out of gamut. So these highlights and shadows, if you click on the highlights right now and say okay, it will automatically select highlights for it. You don't really pick anything. That's not something that really helps us, because we want to be able to say, well, what are the highlights? We want to be able to determine that, and we can't do that using these canned things. So Command D to deselect. Come back up to the select menu, down to color range again, and I'm going to move this out of the way so that we can see. I'm actually going to use the sampled color, so I'm going to go up to sampled colors, and I'm going to click on the red car. And you'll notice down in the preview, it's really hard to see this, but you'll notice down in the preview that it's building a mask. There's parts of the car that are selected and there's parts that are not. The issue that I have with this is the preview is ridiculously too small for me, this to be any good for me. But what I can do is I can use this drop-down menu in the selection preview to go from none down to grayscale, and then it makes my entire image the preview. And now I can really begin to see the car and what I am selecting and what I'm not selecting. So there are controls in doing this to modify this. So I simply clicked once on that. This fuzziness slider right here is the same thing as tolerance was in the Magic Wand. What it's saying is, okay, Verser, you pick this one color. Now I'm going to give you 40 tones of color on either side of what you picked. So you can see if you drag your fuzziness down, it chokes it down even more. If you go all the way down, you'll just pick a single color. You can also grab your fuzziness and drag it up. The problem with using to drag this up is that it's very easy to take this too far. What I'm more interested in doing is trying to get a really good selection of the reds and then use the fuzziness slider to kind of fine tune that. So I'm going to bring my fuzziness back down to around 40, or 32 is really the sort of the standard classic part. You'll also notice now when I come back on my image and I click in another spot, it's just going to click a different part of the car. Again, it gets rid of my original selection and goes somewhere else. I don't want that to keep happening. I want this to be cumulative. So to get it to be cumulative, you'll look over at the eyedroppers that are right underneath the OK part in the slider. By default, the first eyedropper to the left is always selected. And what that means is that every time I click on something, it's just going to create a new selection. But if you click on the eyedropper next to it that's got the little plus next to it, then you can do cumulative. So I can click on another spot. It doesn't get rid of my first one. It actually adds to my first one. You don't just need to click. You can click and drag. So I'm going to click and drag over what I know is the red part of this car. If you're nervous about that, if you're thinking, well, I might hit part of the chrome or I might hit part of that, you can use your preview and go back to none. You'll still see the small little selection in your lower part down here, but then just take the plus tool and drag it across the red of the car. And then you can see where we're really beginning to get now here. So then I can start to clean up other areas that I know are red. Like I know the area by the headlights is red, so I click on that. I know the area down here is also red. I can click on that. And you can see I'm beginning to build a reasonably good selection here. I'm going to click on the highlight on the very top of the hood and see what that does. And then I notice that I'm missing all the side panels of the car. So I'm just allowing this to help build my selection. You can then still use the fuzziness slider to increase this or to decrease this. I do have a problem. I've got something that's selected on the tire of the car right here. So to get rid of that, because somehow it's gone too far, you go to the last of the eyedropper tools, which has got a little negative on it, and you come over here and you click on the car. I'm sorry?
It's red.
Oh, it is?
Yes, it has a red line on it.
Oh, I love that. Thanks for telling me that. Command Z. So again, go back to your normal preview and you can actually see what's going on. Yes, indeed, it is red. So if you didn't want it, we could then ultimately mask this out. But nonetheless, I'm going to go back to what this is, to the grayscale. And let's say, okay, this is the car that I want. I like this, right? So then you can say okay to that. And what you'll do is you'll get the marching ants. So has everybody got marching ants of the red of the car? I'm going to come up and I'm going to save this. So go to the select menu, come down and do Save Selection, and we're going to call it red paint. And save it. Say OK. Command D to deselect. Now if you look at the bottom of your channels palette, you will have a channel called red paint. Instead of, I'm not going to load this now. I'm not going to click on the thumbnail. I'm actually going to click on the channel. And you've now got this. You can work directly on this channel with your tools. So let's say I didn't want the red of the tires as a part of this. I'm going to hold down my space bar and my command key to get the temporary zoom tool. I'm going to zoom in to the car. I'm going to hit the B key to get a brush. I'm going to use the bracket keys just to the right of my P key to make my brush smaller. I'm going to check in my drop-down menu to make sure that this is a completely hard brush. The reason I want a hard brush is I'm going to get rid of this, the red part on the tire. I don't want that as part of my selection. But if you use a soft brush, you can inadvertently spray out into areas that you did not want to change, that you did not want to impact. So with this now as a hard brush, again, I'm going to click on the word Adobe to get that flyout menu to go away. It's a normal blending mode of my brush, 100% opacity, 100% flow. It is black, that's my foreground color, and I can simply paint this away. And I can paint a highlight on the top of the car that I don't like. I can paint something down there that I don't like. I can look around the rest of the car. There's something in the background here that's red. I can get rid of that. There's some highlight, again, another thing in the background that's red. I can get rid of all of those things. And now when I load this as a selection, so I'm going to hover over the thumbnail now to load it as a selection, hold down the command key and click, you will actually see the marching ants. If we go all the way to the very top now and select the composite of the car, you can see that the marching ants do not include the red of that tire. I've eliminated that part. So this saving selections and being able to go in and modify them with brushes is massive because you can eliminate it from selecting things that you didn't want selected. So let the tool do the heavy lifting and you go in and do the fine detail work. Game changer. This is how we make skin masks all the time to control sharpening and to control color. Questions about this? We good? Okay, time for another break. I've got 310. Let's make it a hard. See, I'm giving you that extra minute back now. I know I stole it from you last break. I'm giving it back to you now. Make it a hard 10. Be back at 320, and we will jump into the AI selection tools. So before we continue on with this, I know I promised you guys that there was a plugin that allowed you to actually have a video player inside of your Photoshop so that you could watch the videos inside of Photoshop while you're actually working them. We never installed that, did we? It looks like this, and you can actually play.
If you've ever touched a computer, you probably have watched a YouTube tutorial.
Did we ever install that for you guys? Okay, we're going to do that right now. So again, we're also going to do our homework, how to turn in homework assignments really quickly. So to install this guy, everybody, I need you to go to your week number 1, so your session files week 1. And inside of that session files week 1, here, let me uninstall mine really quickly so I'm doing the same thing that you guys are doing. Okay, so go to week 1, and inside week 1 is the software installers folder, and inside that is this Pix Imperfect Player. This is actually was written by who I happen to think, a lot of you people may know this guy. I think he is the probably the best really high volume YouTube channel. He's got like 5-6 million followers on YouTube, whatever. Smart guy. Anyway, he developed this plugin for exactly this reason. It's free, so I'm giving it to you guys right now. But if you simply double click on it, so again, you're looking at the Pix Imperfect. Let me go back there really quickly. You're looking at the Pix Imperfect Player 1.0.2.ccx. If you click on that, it'll actually open up, And you should get here the ability to install this locally or to install it from Adobe. You can go ahead and select install locally because you have it on your computer. So is this working? Did everybody get it? Could you do that? What happened?
It says replace current version.
Oh, so you already have it installed. So you can say no to that. We'll just load it when it comes time. So if you've already done this, you've already got it installed. But for the rest of you, click on install locally. And I'm going to go ahead and do mine. And you should get this thing that opens up and it says, it's just the boilerplate. It's like it's been displayed by a third party. Do you care? Do you trust it? Do you want to go ahead and say okay to that? And it should install the plugin. Mine's already installed, so I'm hoping I'm not going to screw this part up. And so once that's installed, you're in the cloud. You're in the Creative Cloud now. Go back to Adobe Photoshop. And it should be sitting, you should be seeing it up in the upper left-hand corner. Has everybody got it? You can park this thing because right now you don't want it to be right here. Take this thing, click on the tab that says Pixel Perfect, bring it over to your Properties tab. You're going to go all the way. I've got a Gemini AI in mind that you're going to get to later, but right now you'll just have Properties and Libraries. Bring it right next to the Libraries tab. When you get the entire blue screen that's surrounding it, let go, and it'll be in there. And then whenever you want to do this, you can simply click on this. You'll see right down here. You click on this play
If you've ever
button,
touched a computer,
and it'll
you probably
actually
have
do
watched a
this.
YouTube.
You can actually then, to load these things, up here at the very top, click on these little 3 menus right here. That's not what you want to do. Click on this tab. You don't want to do that part either. Click on this YouTube channel part right here. I'm going to figure out how to load this thing in just a second at some point because I've hit pretty much everything I can hit on this. Oh, it's right up here. Go to YouTube. You'll find where it says link ID up here. When you go to one of my videos that you want to watch, simply once you get to the video, copy the URL at the very top and paste it into this little spot right here, and then click play. And then the video that I've recorded about what you're trying to do will play along in a small screen. If you need to see it bigger because it's too small to see what's really going on here. Oh, my browser doesn't support full screen. You can tear this thing out. So tear the whole tab out, and then I think you can make it bigger. You can. So if you've got a big screen, you can recline. Anyway, it's just to make it easier if you want to watch the videos that that I've recorded of this at the same time, so that you don't have to keep going back and forth from Photoshop into YouTube and Photoshop into YouTube, whatever. I'm hoping that this will actually work out for you guys. If you click on the little X and it goes away and you don't see it anymore, then you can always come back to plugins up here at the top, and it'll be right here, and you can just say reload the plugin or click on it. I think it'll do both. It'll actually reload it, and then you can drag it wherever you want it. So at any rate, I thought that was important that you knew. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and talk about submitting homework right now. So you need to find your homework. Okay, so back in Photoshop, I want to explore the AI tools. So to do that, if you go into your week number 3 folder, in week number 3, in your all's folder, at the very top there is this 1035 master copy v4 PNG. If you can open that up into Photoshop. If you've still got the car in Photoshop open, you can close it. It doesn't, we're done working with it today. You should get this warning. If you do not get this warning, you do not have your color settings set up correctly. So what this is saying is that this PNG does not have an embedded RGB profile. What do you want to do? I'm going to say leave it as it is. Don't color management, because if I don't have one, it doesn't know, none of the things that I assign are going to help. I'm just going to say okay to that. And it'll open up and it'll actually be a composite image that this is one of my images composited. This girl was shot on green screen, and the background is completely fake created. So early composite for me. Not early, not too, few years old. Anyway, does everybody have this image open? Anybody not? Okay. So the first of the selection tools to actually get it, most of them exist in the selection menu. So if you come up to the selection menu, you'll actually see along where color range is, you've got actually subject right here. However, if you pick one of the selection tools, so for instance, if you come back to like the lasso tool or the marquee tool, you get some of the other tools. You actually get the select and mask space tool. Yes.
Mine came up a bit differently. Do I just drag it into Photoshop?
Yeah, that's how I do mine. Because otherwise it comes up in, it can come up in weird stuff. It comes up in preview, or it comes up in Capture One, or yeah, whatever yours opened up is just some browser for PNGs. You probably have to do that from, well, actually you got it. And so you're just gonna say okay to that. You don't need to assign a color. And you're in Photoshop now, right? Okay, great. So depending on some things, if you have certain things selected, like I think if you go to the object selection tool, hang on, I may have just gotten a message here that you have got to be kidding me. All right, we'll figure out drop stuff later. Don't want to stop here right now, so I'm going to just go with this. If you do have the the object selection tool, so in your tool panels that are on the side, the object selection tool is down in the same group as the is the Magic Wand Quick Selection tool. If you click on object selection, you will see that in your options bar up at the top, we're not going to use object selection right now, but you'll see in the very top that you've actually got now in your options bar, you've got select subject exists up here. It also, again, it exists right down here in your select menu. The advantage to having it up here is that there's a drop-down menu right next to select subject. If you click on that, you can do this based on the AI of your device, which is your computer, or the cloud. So again, and the device AI, what it's going to do is simply Photoshop is going to use its skills to select this subject. If you select cloud, what it's going to do is actually going to send this thing up to Adobe servers. They're going to do the selection for you up there with their big old heavy ass machinery and send the selection back down to you. So we set this up in our preferences to always default to cloud, because 9 times out of 10, the cloud gives you a better selection. You need to remember, though, that's not always true. There are times, I can't tell you how many times I've used this tool, and the local version that you would think would be less than the cloud version is actually better. So this is set on by default, so it's set to cloud, so we'll say okay to that. So then again, just click on select subject here. And again, it's now sending it up to Photoshop. It's coming back down, and this is basically what it actually looks like. Now, to get some idea of the quality of this selection, we're going to save it. So come up to the Select menu, down to Save Selection, and I'm going to call it AI Cloud. Just because I want to make the difference and see the difference in the two, and I'm going to say okay to that. If you hit Command D to deselect this, you'll see that you've now got this overlay on your image. That's because we've got select object is still selected. So I am going to then change that. I'm going to then go back up to the select subject. I'm going to click on the drop down, and I'm going to change it to device. And I'm going to do the same thing. Click on select subject. It's going to run through this. It's going to give me marching ants, and I'm going to save this up to the select menu just so that we can compare them. And I'm going to do save selection, and I'm going to call this AI local or device, AI device. And say okay to that. And then we need to take a look at these. So if you come down to your AI cloud, we're actually going to select now the actual channel. So come down to the channels palette where it says AI Cloud and click on it. And we've got marching ants going, so hit Command D to deselect. I've also still got, it's also still trying to select objects for me. I don't want to see this anymore, so I'm just going to click on my Move tool up at the top. And then I'm going to use my zoom tool to move in to really see the hair. This is what I'm really looking for. This to me is always the mark of whether selections are good or not. So I'm looking at this area. This is what the cloud actually did for me. If you then click on the AI device one, you can actually see that actually does, it fills in that sort of like feathery edges a little bit more on the side of this. I don't know which one of these is actually better. I would actually go look at this and explore it. If you want to see which one is really better, we can try to explore that part. To do that, I'm going to scroll all the way up to the very top. I'm going to click on the RGB channel. I'm going to double click on the hand to get it to move back out. So I'm going to make 2 copies of my layer, 2 copies of this background layer. I'm going to hit, I'm going to select my background layer so that that's where I'm working. I'm going to hit Command J once. That makes layer 1 copy. Command J2 second time. It makes a layer 1 copy. I'm going to double click on this layer 1 and I'm going to rename this layer 1 AI cloud. And then the one above it, I'm going to double click on that and call it AI device. And then what I want to see is what this actually looks like on different color backgrounds. So to do that, you okay? Oh, okay. To do that, come down to your background layer. What I'm going to do is I want to put just a blank background underneath these. I'm going to use the masks that we just built to knock these things out. So I use the term knockout. This is the first class that we've actually used this in. Knockout actually refers to the way they used to do this in film. So all the masking that we do, green screen stuff, all that kind of stuff, it's usually referred to as knockout. It was really the phrase that they used for basically what it is removing backgrounds or isolating somebody. It's not a boxing term where somebody gets hit and falls down. So at any rate, select on your background layer. We're going to add a layer, an adjustment layer on top of our background layer, but underneath these AI layers. So to do that, click on the circle that's a half black and half white. You'll get a flyout menu, and you want to pick solid color. Mine's right at it's like the third one from the bottom. Solid color, and then we get to pick what that solid color is. I'm going to start with black. So I'm just going to click on my red channel in my color picker, because that's what opens up. And I'm put in 0, tab key 0, tab key 0. And we're just going to put in a solid color, and it's going to be black. So then I want to see what these things actually look like. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn off my AI device one at the top and select the AI cloud. So the reason I'm turning off the AI device one at the top is I want to see what the AI cloud selection mask did, what it actually looks like. That's what I'm actually going for here. So to do this, I'm going to hover over my I'm going to come over to my channels palette. Again, you do not want to select the AI channel, the AI cloud channel. If you do that, you've got this. It's just extra steps. You don't want to do that. Simply hover over the thumbnail of AI cloud, hold down your command key and click. It will load that as a selection. Come over to your AI cloud layer and simply add it as a layer mask. And you can see this girl has now been isolated on this. Now I think that the black is actually the wrong color for this. I think we'll get a better idea for whether this was successful or not if we put her on white. So to do that, I'm going to double click on the adjustment layer that is black, and I'm going to make it white instead. To do that, select the red value, type in 255 for the red, tab key 255 for the green, tab key 255 for the blue, and we now have this person on white. And if we zoom in to take a look at this, that looks like a really janky, shitty selection to me. I don't know about you guys, but this is horrible. This is unusable in my book. If you turn that into me, no. So I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to double click on the hand. I'm going to turn on the AI device version now, and we're going to see what that one looks like. So again, I'm going to come over to my channels palette. Do not select AI device channel. Hover over the thumbnail of AI device channel. Hold down your command key or control key. Click to load it as a selection. Select the AI device layer and add a layer mask. And then zoom in. and this looks worse. So this is what it looks like for the device, and then this is what it looks like for the for the cloud. And I can't really tell you which one of those is worse. So if you want to go back and forth between, I'm not going to go into that part. We'll deal with history later. But neither one of these really is working that well for me personally. So, but that's a way to actually see and to see what the AI selections will actually do for you. Now, there are other AI selections. You can actually turn all three of those layers that are on the very top off. You can come back down to the background layer, and we are going to look at other things that you can select as well, AI selection tools. So now we are going to look at the object selection tool. So to get to that, again, it's in the object selection, or the quick selection group. So it's the fourth tool down, come down to object selection. And when you do that, you'll open up, and usually you have to select over something or hover over something. But if you have people in your image, Photoshop will actually recognize that there are people in this image. And if you click on this drop down, you'll see that up in your options bar, you've now got select people. You can click on this select people, and if there are multiple people in your image, it will give you faces that you can actually select. When you click on the face to make a selection, you will get a drop down menu, and you can say, I want to select the entire person, or I want to select just the hair, or just her eyebrows, or you can select like her features of her face. So say you want to select the eyebrows, click on it. Say you also want to select the eyes, click on it. I also want to select the nose, click on it. I also want the mouth. Click on it. This allows you to build your selection, and then once you get to this part, you can say, okay, fine, that's what I want to select, and hit apply, and you will then get marching ants on her eyebrows, her nose, her eyes, and her lips. Yes?
When I'm on the object selection, it doesn't show select object, it says object
Oh, let me see. A lot of times you have got to go into the actual image and either select the figure or hover over it to get it to actually start its calculation. So you have the object selection tool done, right? Oh yeah, so then just click on the figure and see what happens. And then it should, with those going, oh, you're in 2020. This may be an older version of Photoshop. So, new features. Yes? Okay, so if you want it over here, hover over the thumbnail. You don't need to select it, just hover over, hold down your Command key, and click. You now have marching ants going. Yeah, and then you're going to come over and select your layer menu here. And the reason, again, that's why you don't want to select the channel. You have to scroll all the way up to the very top. No, just go up to the very, scroll up to the very top, click the RGB channel so you see the whole thing. And then you're just going to add layer mask. So just click on add layer mask, because you have a selection going, and there it is. Okay. So anyway, these things work with varying degrees of success or not. Do I use them? Sure. I mean, how long did it take me just to see what that is looking like? But the minute I look at the selection and I go in and I just say, well, no, this blows, I'm not doing that. I move on. There are other things that we can actually look at and think about doing here. So object selection tool goes beyond this. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. You can also hover over the chair and select it. It'll actually select the chair, or hover over the picture and select that. The same tricks work here as work in all the other selection tools. If you want to do multiple selections, you hold down your Shift key, and now I'm going to hover over the chair guy, although it's not giving me the chair guy, but I'm going to click on it anyway. It's there, it's just not giving me the overlay of it. And so that's how you can select multiple parts of this. So anyway, that's how all of this part works. Any questions about this? Okay, a couple other things you should be aware of. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect all of it. Up in the select menu, you've got some other specialty selection things. You've got sky is one of them. Again, I think there are better ways. We could take a look. We're going to revisit the castle thing and try to refine those channels if we have time. If we don't, we will do that next week. I promise you that. But at any rate, so there are other things. These are like all built in. Again, some of them work better than others, but I'm going to show you old school way of doing this that I actually think is quite possibly the best way of doing this. There is one other space that we do need to look at, but first off, any questions about this so far? Are we good about this? Okay. You can close this up. You do not need to save it. The next one I want to open up is, again, it's also in your Session 3 folder, and it is the Select and Mask practice file. It's at the very bottom of it. You'll see if you click on it and look at the preview, it's a profile of a girl with hair flying. I'm going to bring that into Photoshop. Again, you should get a warning. In this case, it's a different warning. It's saying, oh, okay, in this case, it is embedded sRGB color profile, and your working profile is Adobe RGB. Again, if you don't see this warning, you do not have your color settings set up correctly, and you need to let me know so that we set this up correctly. Otherwise, you are running the risk of damaging all of your files. So are we all good on this?
I didn't get them.
Okay. So if you didn't get the warning, it's okay if you can wait there. You will from now on. Come up in Photoshop, come up to the Edit menu, down to Color Settings. Next one up, Color Settings. And in this drop down, you want to click on this drop down from North American Pre-Press to North American General Purpose. Next one up. And say, okay, this is, wait, hang on. That didn't change. Go back to that. It didn't change. Go back down to North American General.
It is this one.
No, we're looking for pre-press. Yeah, that's the one you want. And then you'll see Adobe RGB is your color space and all your warnings are on. So okay. And the next time you open it, you should get those warnings. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And you can see when you open this thing up, there's 2 layers in here. Again, I always double click on the hand just to get it as big as I can get it. If you take a look, there's 2 layers in here. If we turn off the eyeball for the top layer that's labeled as hair, there's a beach scene behind them, and then in this case, there's turn it back on and we see this part, the hair part, the figure of the girl. So we are going to use the Select and Mask workspace to work on this image. So this is a way, it's a thing that Photoshop has built in that's designed to simply mask it. Really gives you more control than just select subject or select, nose and eyeballs and whatever. I mean, this allows you to really dictate to Photoshop what you want selected and how you want it selected. This is there's a different version of Refine Edge masks that I'm going to show you guys if we have time with our castle image. But I've got to show you luminosity masking today, so I'm going to postpone that until the end of the class. If we don't have time to get to that at the end of the class, we will pick it up first thing next week, so we'll have time. But I need to make sure that you understand luminosity masking before the end of the day today, because that's what is that's in large part the homework that you're going to be doing. So I want to make sure everybody's good about all these selection methods before we go into refining everything. Okay, so with this first thing, you want to select the top layer. Again, you don't want to do this with the bottom layer selected. You want to select the top layer to do this. Come up to the Select menu down to Select and Mask. And what will end up happening is that this will take you into a completely different space. You'll notice that this isn't Photoshop, the space that we've been in anymore. You do have a Properties panel over here, and you've got a very abbreviated set of toolbars on the left-hand side. You do have a options bar that sits up at the very top. And then your image may look very different than mine looks right now. That's okay. We will actually work this whole part out. But you're not in Kansas anymore. This does not have, again, you don't have any of the channels palettes over here. You got no info palettes. You got none of that. We are in a completely separate workspace. Now, this is inside the Adobe ecosystem or in the Photoshop ecosystem, but we are in a completely separate space. To get back to the default of this space, what you need to do is over here, we're going to start in the Properties panel and work our way down. The first thing you need to do is set the view. So if you click on the view, there's a drop-down menu on the side of the view, and you want to pick Onion Skin. Onion Skin is the one that's at the very top, and it's the one that's usually on by default. And I'll show you what Onion Skin actually means, but this is when Adobe took their old Refine Edge and actually created this Onion Skin. That's when this whole new space was created, and when it works really well. When it doesn't work well. So I'm going to show you how this ultimately works. So I need to make sure that everyone's got Onion Skin picked. And then with your transparency slider that's right underneath this, if you scroll all the way, if you drag it all the way to the left-hand side, all you see is the girl. If you'll go all the way to the opposite side, to the right-hand side, all you see is the beach. If you go right in the middle, right here, you see this sort of combination of both. And this is designed to make it easier for us to see what has been selected and what has not been selected. So the way this tool works is, and sometimes I have to say, sometimes you need to adjust this transparency. What we're trying to get is the sense that we're really being able to see both. So this way we can see if part of the beach has been selected or if part of the girl hasn't been selected or all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the reason the onion skin exists. So to use it, if you take a look over on the toolbar on the left-hand side, up at the very top is the quick selection tool. It is identical to the quick selection tool in Photoshop. There are actually a lot of people who, when they work in Select and Mask Workspace, actually use the quick selection tool first, and then with an active selection going, come into this. I think that's a mistake. The tool here is the exact same one in Photoshop, and to see what it's actually doing in the onion skin environment is more important. So I don't think I think you should be with no selection at all, just coming into this space, and we'll figure it out from here. So again, the quick selection tool, as we have known, as we've talked about all last week in Smart Objects, you don't want this tool to touch the edge you want it to find. So you can still, it's a brush. You can still use the bracket keys to make it larger. By default, it's a brush. It's got the little P in the middle of it. On the options panel up here, you have a drop-down menu that will allow you to control the size of the brush, but you cannot control the hardness of the brush. But you'll also notice there's two little icons over here. There's a plus and a minus. Nobody uses the plus and minus icons up there because even though the plus is too small to see, if you hold down your option key, you will see that it actually changes to a minus, and let go of it, it'll go back to a plus again. So nobody actually uses these little things up at the top, and I don't use the thing to change the size. I use my bracket keys for that. You do have a select subject in here, drop down, and again, if you click on that drop down, you can see it's device or cloud, and then you also have refine hair in here. So we're going to look at the more old school version of this, and then we will look at what this thing will do as well, and just sort of see which we like better. So to use the quick selection tool over here, and then I'll explain what the other tools are in just a second, we're going to start here on her face. Now again, I don't want to go off of her face here in the front because the quick selection tool is going to start looking for the background that's in that space. But if you start, like I'm going to start it right around her ear, and you click, you will notice that her ear gets incredibly bright right now. This is what the onion skin metaphor is about. What we have just done is we've peeled the onion skin away from that. This is telling me that this area is going to be fully selected. So then if you work your way around this and you get close, you will see it's using its AI to find the line that is the profile of her face, but you can tell that this part of her hair up in here that's still ghosted out has not been selected yet. You can also see that her shoulder in the front here is also not been selected yet. So the onion skin helps you see what has and has not been selected. So I'm going to click and grab the other part of her shoulder to make sure that that is selected, but then I need to go after her hair. Now, when you do her hair, you need to avoid this area where it transitions and you start to pick up both hair and background, because then you'll be selecting background. You do not want to do that. So again, you also don't want to go in front of the edge of her hair here. You've got to let the tool find what it's going to find. So I'm simply going to click again, and as I come into her hair, it starts to pick that part up. Yes?
If you do happen to bleed into the background, is there a way to undo that?
Yes, we're going to go after that in just a second. So the question is that if you do bleed into the background, so I'm going to deliberately bleed into the background right now. This has now actually been selected right here. Again, that's what the minus selection tool is about. You hold down your option key, and again, we're going to get rid of this area, but you cannot touch her skin with this because, again, we're trying to get rid of this. So you can just zoom up like that and get rid of that part. Now, in my case, it's looking like I didn't get rid of that part. If you want to check to see what really is selected, you have other views of this that you can go and you can say, oh, so where did I make the mistake? Click on your drop-down menu and you can come down and say, well, I want to see this on black. And you'll see that this is a problem right in here. You can still use the quick selection tool, the -1. So I'm going to make my cursor a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to come and get rid of all of that part and get rid of this part. And now that is no longer selected. So then I'm going to go back to the onion skin. I still, again, just by letting go of my option key, I get the +1. However, you can see that in the hair area that's up in here, I've got both selected. The quick selection tool is not going to help me at all up here, so simply leave that. We're going to deal with that in another way. But you can see you've also got here that has not been selected. This hair is still all ghosted out. There's hair up in here that's got both as well. Neither one is selected. So I want to finish selecting the area that is solid. So again, I'm going to keep my brush on her body. I'm never going to go across the hair into where it gets all feathery. I'm just going to continue to work my way down like this. Again, it uses the tool pretty well. But now you can see what has not been selected and has. So the difference in this is that if we go on our view and drop down and say we want to see this on white, it'll actually show you what's on white right here. This is also an improvement of this in this version of Photoshop. You used to not be able to see any of the small little hairs that were in here at all. Those were just blown out. And the advantage of the onion skin was you could see that there was stuff that you did not have selected. So again, this is ever evolving. So Photoshop is continuing to work on this, so obviously. So I'm going to go back to the onion skin again. I can tell I have a problem here. I have a problem with all of the fine hair against the background that I need to fix. Sometimes it's picked up the background, sometimes it's not picked up any of the hair. To fix that, you use the next tool down in the toolbar. The next tool down is the Refine Edge tool. So click on it. It is also a brush. You want to make this one bigger as well. It's also got a negative and a positive. The positive is always the one that's on by default. But now this tool, again, you need to avoid hitting edges that you don't want it to work on. So everybody look up at my screen. I have got problem area right in here, but if I'm just cavalier with this brush and I brush along this line right here, you see half of my brush is in the hair that I want to be completely selected. This area down in here, this area that's right in here, I don't want to change that, and this brush will change that. So it will damage areas that have already been selected that I don't want to damage. So I'm going to keep the edge of my brush right along that solid hairline, and also I'm not going to hit into this bigger area of her hair in here any more than I need to get this brush to work. So I'm going to start here where you can see I can see background in that part as well. I'm going to click and drag up through that background down into here, and then down into the hair part right here, and then up again to finish all of this. Then there's hair in the middle here that has not been selected. Again, do not bring this brush down into her body. It will start to remove parts of those hair, part of her head in that part, and you do not want that to happen. So keep that edge, the edge of your brush, right along the edge of the line that you want it to find, and we are going to go all the way down here. I'm just tracing that whole line of the solid part of her hair. It will pick up all of those other small little hairs. I can now see that there's a whole area up in here that needs to actually be fixed. And then I can't really tell what has really been picked in here and what hasn't been. So this time I'm going to go to my drop-down menu, and instead I'm going to come down to black and white. When you do that, this is the layer mask that it's going to create. So now in here you can say, oh, I wonder if there's any hair that's in this little area. Look at my screen where I'm talking about that hasn't been picked up in this. So I can go across that area to see if something else hasn't been picked up in that. And I'm feeling pretty good about this mask. If you take a look, yes. Let me see. Wait, you got it? Oh, okay. Click on this drop down menu. It's that. You go down to black and white. That's what we're looking at. And this is your mask. Again, you don't need to upgrade from Photoshop. Oh, don't worry about any of those. We haven't got into the real time array yet. But you do need to actually refine all of this part because that hasn't been refined at all. So go back to your onion skin, and you're selecting the second tool down, and you're going to paint. Make a bigger brush. You got way too small of the mask that this thing is created. However, we're not done. We're not done with this. The next brush down, you'll see spots on your image. Now I'm going to take mine and move my image around because the spots that I'm seeing on my image are actually probably my spit on the screen of my computer. But you can have like solid parts that are actually happening somewhere in here. If that happens, you can go to the next tool down. The next tool down is simply a brush. That's all it is. It will paint with either black or white. So you can see, I'm gonna bring mine down. If I click and drag, you don't see anything because it's the plus brush and it's already white. But if you hold down your Option key and click, you'll paint with black. So this is simply a way to refine things that you see that are very obvious. This is not relying on the AI at all. So I'm going to paint over this again now using just the white version of this brush to get rid of that. The next tool down, I think is going to be, it looks like, yeah, it is the Object Selection tool. So in this thing, you still have the Object Selection tool, you've still got a lasso tool, you've still got a hand tool to move around, and a magnifying glass. You've also got the Select Subject and the Refine Hair. So all of these are options to us, and you just need to see which one of these work the best. You've also got two changes that can happen in here. You have got, if we come down underneath this, so I feel like I'm good with what I've got going on here. I'm not going to do any of these showing edges or originals. I don't care about that part in this program. We will look at those in a different program later on. In the preset parts down right here, you can actually save this. There's no reason for us. The reason people save presets and that kind of thing is that you can make selections that are based on color, which is what we're doing ours right now, and you could batch images. So let's say you did something on green screen and you selected just the green. This might work as a preset. Again, I don't use any of this stuff. I don't work on hundreds of images at a time. However, you can also change how Photoshop looks at this. Is it doing just it based on color aware, or do you want it to be object aware? So if you click on object aware, you're going to say switching these modes may result in a different image. Do you want to proceed? I'm going to say okay to that and see if there was a change. And the change did happen. It looks to me like it actually chopped into the hair here. It actually made things worse. So I'm going to go back to color aware, and I'm hoping it'll go back to the way it was. Yeah, this is a much more complete selection. The object aware is really torn apart what was inside those fine hair selections. So I do not want that part. Then the rest of this puff down here, the edge detection, we do this much better manually in Photoshop. We're not going to get to that today, but I will certainly show you that as we move on through doing these types of selections like this. But you want to avoid these tools right here. There are better ways to do this manually yourself than there are in this toolbox. This is refinements for really lazy people. If you then come down to the very bottom, you have output settings, and if you click to open that up, you have got decontaminate colors at the very top. This is a destructive move. We'll look at what that means in just a second. And then the output too, this actually matters. So if we do this as an output, if you click on the drop-down menu, you can see you can output this to a selection, which doesn't really help us. It gives us marching ants, but then we need to build the layer mask based on the marching ants, so no reason. Layer mask will actually create a layer mask on this, which is great. It's non-destructive. If you pick new layer, this is destructive. Do not do this. What it will do is it will actually put the layer mask on your layer, then it will remove the layer mask and apply it. So it will get rid of all of those background pixels. You do not want that to happen because this may not be a perfect mask, and if it isn't, you need to be able to go in and fix it. And if you remove all those pixels, again, destructive move, there's no way to recover from that. You've damaged it too far. So this is exactly what I was talking about earlier when we do not use apply layer mask when we get rid of it, and that's what this thing is all about. You can do a new layer mask with a new layer with a layer mask. That's okay, that's safe. It will make a duplicate of this of the girl, the profile, and actually put a layer mask on it, so that part's fine. Then continuing to go down here, I wish the fuck they would quit with these these things that are trying to tell me in yellow and cover up exactly the thing that I'm trying to tell you what it is. So again, new layer with layer mask is fine. New document is not fine. It's a destructive move. It will create a layer mask for this. It will apply the layer mask to that destructive move, and then it will actually create a brand new copy of your file. So at least you have the benefit of being able to go back to the original file. But again, there's nothing about destructive workflow that I want to see happening from you guys, so no. However, you could do a new document with a layer mask. That part's all acceptable. But in our case, we're just going to do a layer mask for this. It's all we need to do. It's not a destructive move, and I'm simply going to click OK. And you can now see that this is what the image ultimately looks like. And so if we zoom in here, we've got some parts of it are really pretty good. If you take a look at her profile, that part's actually pretty well done. The hair starts to fall apart a little bit here. Their part in here, I'm getting a lot of breakup in this hair. I can see part of the hair right here that never got selected. So there's nothing to keep you from going right back into select and mask, which I'm going to do. And then run across, it's this part that's right in here is not fully done. So I'm going to go back to my refine edge, and I'm going to go across that part, and it actually builds it in a little bit more, and I'm still going to say okay to that. So I still don't think this is completely selected, but nonetheless. So this is the best of the AI selection part right here. There's also part of the background that's still in here I would want to fix. So again, you live and die by the sword. However, if you double click on the hand, hold down your your shift key and click on the layer mask to disable it, you'll see that we didn't do any destructive move on this. This image is still fine. There was no problem, no harm, no foul in this. The mask is imperfect. We need to fix that part, but fine. So then I'm going to ask you to throw this mask away. Again, you're going to get the warning and you're going to say, do you want to apply it, delete it, or cancel? Your only two options are delete or cancel. Your options are not apply. So we are going to delete the mask. It's gone. We're going to go right back into select and mask workspace, up to it, down to select and mask. We're going to do the same thing again really fast, so don't take a whole lot of time in this. Just pick the very top tool, quick selection tool, run across the most of her hair on her body, grab the next tool underneath, drag it only over the areas where you've got hair that hasn't been selected or you've got background that's mixed in with the hair. Do not select anything that you do not want to be, that you don't want this tool to work on, and you do not want this tool to work on anything where you're not having problems with that. So this is my next version of it. However, I'm going to change my setup here. When I come down to this now, before I do output 2, I am going to select decontaminate colors. And when you select decontaminate colors, you'll get an amount slider. So if it ends up being too aggressive the first time you do it, simply undo it, come back in here and try it at 70% instead of 100. Or if that's still too aggressive, knock it down to 50. I mean, you have those options to do this over and over and over again until you perfect it. But what you will notice is that the output now too has changed. In the output now, we have got, again, we can do this on a new layer. You cannot do this to the current layer because this is a destructive move. So you can create a new layer that's got a mask applied. You don't want to do that. You can do a new layer with a layer mask is what we do want to do. And then if that stupid thing would go away, we could do a new document. Again, destructive move. You do not want to do this. Or a new document with layer. What you cannot do is you cannot do this to the existing layer because you've clicked on this decontaminate colors. So I'm going to do mine to a new layer with a layer mask and say okay to that. And it creates a new layer. It turns off the background layer, and the first layer guy here. And now when we look at this, you can see, oh my God, that is so much better on that layer mask. I mean, this looks so much better, don't you think? Hold down your shift key and click on the layer mask. Owie. That is a destructive move. That is what decontaminate colors does. It totally ruins that layer. Now, in our case, it's great. In our case, it's actually fixed a lot of the problems that we had. The mask, if you hold down the shift key and again, click on your layer mask to turn it back on, the mask is actually controlling where you see this. But this has fixed a lot of the problems. We had a lot of that ghosting of the hair, a lot of that was going on. This fixes all of that. But that's serious. If they did that and this image underneath didn't exist, if this didn't exist and you had simply done that and you had to recover from this, and you save this file, you don't have history anymore, you can't go back in history. There's no undoing this. So again, you can destroy copies of your layer, but you cannot do destructive work on your layers themselves. Are we good on this part? Questions about this? Okay. Sprinting to the finish. Really quickly, let me see where we're at with the server. Okay, so again, go to the server, to photography is where you should land, to class projects should be visible. Actually, that's where you land. To class projects, inside to Engelhard, inside to the Dropbox. And in the Dropbox, we've still got a world of hurt in here. I want you guys to hold on to your homework files for today. I'm going to try to get rid of the rest of this to even just make this possible. I mean, this if it's any consolation, this happens every single semester. So we'll see how this one goes. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Would it be easier to just create a new folder with the Dropbox?
That's actually a damn good call, Miguel. I'm glad you're in this class. Well, for that and other reasons. Yeah, let's see where this goes, but let me finish up with where we're at right now. And when in doubt, it's a brilliant call. It's what I've had to do for everything else. I'll move the old Dropbox into, I have a folder, if you notice, also in there that says something like can't remove or do not whatever. I will move the old Dropbox in there, create a new one, and you guys will just throw it in the Dropbox. So we'll save time to do that part. Actually, we won't save time to do that part. We will do that part right now. I'm going to pause the video. Okay. So for the next move, I cannot get to my Finder right now because the delete of the server stuff has got it tied up. I hope that's the problem. So instead, I'm going to open mine from Photoshop, but I'm going to tell you guys how to get to the next file that I want you to open up. So it's going to be in your session number 3 folder. So I'm just going to go to my open folder and in, again, Columbia in our retouching folder inside of our session number 3, inside of your student 3 week 3 folder. If you come down, there's this hair Fantasia it's copyrighted by this woman, Lise Gange. Again, this is an exercise file that I got from a Deke McClellan LinkedIn Learning exercise. He's one of the books that I recommend to people if you're into doing what we're doing right now is dealing with channels. He's written the book on this. So anyway, that's the thing I need you to open up into Photoshop. So I can't get to my Finder, but can you guys get this image open? Has everybody got this guy open? Anybody not? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a selection of this. I want to remove this girl. I want to remove the background from this image and just use the girl on a different background. So that's what we're going to go. The thing that I'm going to show you now is how we do. It's the more old school method. It's not an AI version. It takes longer to do, but to date, it does much better. Well, not much. 2 years ago, I would have said it does infinitely better selections. Yeah, that's fine. But this day and age, it just does better selections than any of the AI tools that we have in Photoshop. So I'm going to show you how to do this part. We're going to go through all the steps because even if you do not use this to build selections, the understanding that this brings about how to work with this and other tools is really important to us. So our goal in this is to remove the background from this person. I'm not going to use some eraser tool or I'm not going to do any of that kind of stuff. What I want to do is I want to build a mask to do this, right? I already have 3 masks that exist in this image. Can anybody spot those? They're right there on my screen, plain as day. If I click on the red channel, isn't that a mask that's controlling the red? If I click on the green channel, isn't that a mask that's controlling the green? And if I click on the blue, this is the one controlling the blue. So guys, this is the thing that the Knoll brothers figured out and that created Photoshop. This is how they built Photoshop. What they realized is that you can create a digital image using different amounts of red, green, and blue. We've already looked at that in our color theory part. So what they did was they simply broke an image into 3 channels. There's a red channel that is only red light, there's a green channel that is only green light, and there is a blue channel that's only blue. And they said, okay, well, if we put a mask on that, a density on that, we can control what really comes through, what you actually see in this. So if you take a look at this image right now, you will see, I'm looking at the red channel alone. There is quite a bit of red in this girl's face, in skin. If you hover your cursor over the let's just go up to the very top. Go up to your RGB guy at the very top. If you hover your cursor over this and take a look at your info readout right here, you can see that the red is reading a 233, the green is reading at a 201, and the blue is reading a 143. If you hover over the dark part of her hair, you see we're in the low 20s. These masks are controlling the amounts of red, green, and blue. This is how you build that image. They control how much red is in this spot, how much isn't, how much green is in this spot, how much isn't, how much blue is in this spot. So if you run around all over this image, if you come down to her lips, you will actually see that there's considerably more red than there is green and blue. That's because her lips are red. Does that make sense, everybody, what's going on? So these 3 masks, this mask right here, the red, this is controlling how much red is actually in this image. And you can see her skin here is very light. It's allowing a whole lot of red to hit this image, to be a part of this image. But if you look at the hair that's really black, there's very little red in that black. And this is controlling how much red is where it is in this image. Does this make sense to everybody? Who am I losing on this? Because this is really critical to how this all works. Are we good on this part? Okay. Here, maybe I can actually make this even more obvious. So do me a favor, just click on the red channel. If you get some weird looking thing, click on your composite channel at the very top and then come down. Don't click on the thumbnail. Click just on the channel itself and you'll get it by itself. I'm going to add a curve to this, an adjustment curve to this. And I'm going to, it actually goes back to this. So I'm going to select the red again. I don't want to see that. All right, so it may take, just watch my screen. It's going to take you a while because when we go to this curve, it's actually, it doesn't confuse the channels, but it makes it very difficult to isolate this. But look what happens to this. I'm actually going to go into my red channel right now of my curve, and I am going to pull it down and make it darker. And you can see it's making all of this channel darker, and it's making the composite more cyanic because I'm removing the red. This is what is controlling it though, is the mask of this red channel. So you can see this mask is not allowing that to come through. If I crank it all the way down and make that channel black, then look at my image. It has got this cyanic cast on it because I no longer have any red in my image. I've got green and blue, but I don't have any red. So whatever's going on in here is masking the red. It's controlling where you see it and where you don't. So I'm going to throw this guy away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage the masks that are already started. Why would you try to make a selection of this when you've already got really good masks to begin with? So what I'm looking for now is, what's going to be the hardest part of this selection to make? The hair, right? Definitely the hardest part. I can damn near do the skin with a brush. But the hair, that's a nightmare. So what I'm looking for is contrast. I need to get the most contrast between the hair and the background. Because if I can get the hair to go black and the background to go white, I have the perfect mask. I can completely separate the background from the girl. Does that make sense? That's why we've spent so much time on masks. If I have got a mask that is literally black and white, wherever it's white, we'll reveal it. Wherever it's black, we'll conceal it. And I'm off to the races. Right? So that's the goal. So if I'm looking at right now, what I'm looking for is contrast, and I'm looking for contrast in the hair. I'm going to ignore the skin right now. I'm just going to focus on the hair. So I'm looking at the red channel, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to click to the green, and you can see in the green, the hair on the edges here just lightened up. That tells me there's less contrast. If I go back to the red, it's darker hair against, the background doesn't change, but the hair gets darker. When I go to the green, the hair gets lighter. That's only working against me. If I go to the blue, it gets pretty much the same thing. Look at how light the hair is in here. If I go from the blue back to the red, you can see the hair gets darker. So I want to start with a copy of the red channel because that's got the most contrast in it. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, buckle up, guys. This is going to get a little bumpy right now. But we do this over and over and over and over again. So the first time I show this, people go, oh my God, this is never going to, I know, this is just too much, whatever. This will become second nature to you all. I promise you that. It does. It has for every class I've ever done for this. So anyway, hang in there. So we're going to make a copy of the red channel. To make a copy of it, simply grab the red channel and drag it down to the little icon at the very bottom of the channels palette that's the square with a plus in the middle. It's just like it's just going to make a copy of the channel, just like if you grabbed a layer and drug it down to that same little icon on the layers palette, it would make a copy of the layer. And you can see it's a thing that's now called red copy. I've still got my red channel. I didn't lose it. I've just got red copy. I'm going to double click on that and rename it, and I'm going to call it Knockout. And say okay to that. So now what I want to do is I want to amp this up. I really do want the background to be white and I want the hair to be black. But we need to talk about what hair we do want to be black. So I need everybody to look up at my screen. I'm looking in this area right over in here. So if you think of this as a clock face, I'm looking at this area that's sort of right around 3 o'clock. This is where I'm gonna zoom in to where these sort of curls are right here. Again, I'm gonna hold down my space bar and the command key. I temporarily will get the magnifying glass, and I'm going to zoom into this area that's, right in here. This is actually a good area. So if you can find these curls and zoom into this area, you guys should really be doing this because this is going to be your homework to death. And again, muscle memory will help this. So when I look at the hair right here, there's parts of the hair I know I want to be jet black. So you can see where the hair in this area, look at my screen to see where I'm talking about. In this area, right in here should be black. It's solid hair. It's really clumped together. It's thick. There's no background showing through that. There's an area right next to it that actually is the same thing, but there's highlights on this hair. However, those highlights also need to be black if I'm going to get separation. Where it shouldn't be black is this area up in here. Look at this part of my image right in here. Hair is in this area is actually transparent. Hair in reality is transparent. So there are areas that we can zoom in to this part up in here. You can see hair that's like in this range, like in this part right in here. That hair should not be black. If you take it to black, your mask will be way too aggressive. Hair, actually, if you get thin enough streaks going, and you guys all know this, if you backlight hair, you get light that comes through it. It doesn't come through the hair that's on your head. It doesn't actually come through your head because that part's actually solid. And there's parts of the hair that where you're backlighting that light does not penetrate either. But on the really fine little feathery edges, whatever, that light comes through and you get that beautiful glow backlight, right? It's the same thing here. I cannot be too aggressive with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the right spot in here. Yeah, I've got it right here. I'm going to zoom into this curl that's going right in here. If you take a look at this area that's right in here, oh, it's too zoomed in. At this area that's right down in here, this is actually solid enough for me. However, I'm also confident enough that this area right over in here is solid enough for me. So I'm going to go for a lighter area where the shine actually is on her hair over in here. I'm going to pick that as what I want to go black in this image, and then I'm just going to go to the side of this and pick a place to go white. So what I mean by picking this is that you want to do this based on numbers. You want to do this based on readouts. One of the reasons that we have the info palette permanently in place is to do work exactly like this. So please do this with me, or watch the video. Now that I say that, I gotta make sure that the video is actually still recording. Yeah. So the 6th or 7th tool down. It's the eyedropper tool. You want to go down to the eyedropper tool, but we're not going to pick the eyedropper itself. If you click on the lower right-hand corner of that, you'll get a flyout menu, and you can go to the color sampler tool. So again, look up at my screen. It's the eyedropper tool. Click on the lower right-hand corner. You'll get a flyout menu. The second of the tools of this group down is the color sampler tool. You want to pick that. And then I'm going to come over to this shiny part of her hair, this area that's in here. You don't want to pick like the darkest part that's in there. You want to pick a pretty light part. So I'm just going to pick a part right here. I'm going to hover my cursor over it, and I'm going to click once. And when you do that, it throws down a point that stays there. It's got a number 1 on it. You can see right underneath it is the number 1. It also adds to your info palette. We now actually have, we've added a color sampler readout under there, and underneath it you can see it reads number 1 as well. And then inside of it is a K and an 84%. What this is that masks can only contain shades of gray. They cannot contain color. Even though this channel at the very top looks like it has color, it is not a real channel. It is an illusion. These channels down here are the real deal. You cannot put color in a layer mask either. Masks and channels cannot contain color. They can only contain shades of gray. So what this K is, it is the K of CMYK. It is black ink. Now, this is a dark color of black ink. If this was 100%, it would be jet black. It's 84%, so it's a dark black. It's a dark gray. If it was 0%, it would be white. If it was 10%, it would be very light gray. But that's what it is. However, working in K and CMYK does not help us. We are in a RGB world. All the readouts beyond this that we get to work with will be in RGB. So we want this readout to be in RGB as well. To do that, you hover over the eyedropper that's the number 1. You'll see there's a little arrow underneath it. If you click on this, you will get a drop-down menu. And instead of measuring the actual color, which is K, you can change this and say, I want you to give me this in readouts in RGB color. And click on that, and you'll see it's, in my case, it's reading 41, 41, 41. They'll always be the same number because this is a grayscale. Gray is always made up of equal values of RGB. Your number may be slightly different than this, but it should be close to this. So this, I know now, I want this to be 0. Then I'm going to hold down the hand and get the temporary hand, the space bar to get the temporary hand, and I'm going to drop another point out on the background. I typically try to do backgrounds pretty close to where I'm doing the figure part of it. You don't want to go someplace completely different in your image and find some other kind of background. You typically want to stay close, but you don't want to be so close that you're worried about actually hitting something that's got hair in it. I want a clean background, so I'm just going to come out here to the side and I'm going to click and put down a second point. And now you'll see I get a second point in my readouts that's actually also in K, and it's a 2% K. So again, this is a very light background. If it was 0%, it would be white. But again, I can't work in K. K does not help me. I want these numbers in RGB readout. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper to get the drop-down menu, and I'm going to come back down to RGB color. So now I've got my goal. What I want to do is I want to get the thing that is 41, 41, 41 in here, the hair, to go black. And then I want to get the 249, 249, 249 to go white. How do I do that? You guys have used this shit your whole life in Photoshop. All you 3s and 4s, your 3.5s, your 3.9s, you are failing miserably right now. Actually, I'm going to chalk it up to you're not failing miserable right now. You're just burnt out from overload. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of this class. If not, I can never get you where you need to be. So you will look back on this and you'll appreciate it, I hope. How about levels? Oh, that would do it. Doesn't levels actually change my tonal structure? Can I remap my levels? Sure. So to do this, you do not create an adjustment layer, and there are no adjustment channels. There's nothing you can put on this. So this is a destructive move. You can't change this part, but you can always do it over. So if we get too aggressive for this or something goes wrong, we can always change that up. So don't worry about this part. I'm not working on the RGB channels. I'm working on a copy, and if it all goes wrong, I just start the whole process over again. So with the knockout still selected, I'm going to go up to the image menu, down to adjustments, down to levels. or the keyboard shortcut for this is Command L. And it'll bring up a levels dialog box, and it'll be right here. And then what you'll see is in the readouts that we've got in our info palette, when I brought this levels box on, all of a sudden I get 2 sets of numbers here, not 1. So if I cancel out of this, watch, I've got just 1 set of numbers. But when I pull the levels dialog box up, Command L, I get 2 sets of numbers. And what they do is the set of numbers that are on the left-hand side are the originals, and they will not change. The ones that are on the right-hand side will change depending on what I do in this levels dialog box. The reason that they're the same right now is because I haven't done anything in this levels dialog box. Now, normally you would think, well, Virtue, this is simple. You just need to type it in. Why don't you just type 41 in here, because this says 41, and it should just go to 0. And yes, I would say that that was probably true, but that doesn't happen. Again, don't ask me why. I'm not the engineer at Photoshop that built this, but it doesn't. So what you need to do, and I need everybody to do this with me, please. We're going to grab the black point slider that's underneath the histogram, and we're going to start to drag it towards the middle. When you get close to 0, stop, because you do not want to go any further than you absolutely have to go. So I'm going to grab this part and I'm going to start to drag it, and I'm watching that point number 1 readout the whole time. You can see I've now got those 41s down to 14s. I'm going to keep going until I get close to 0 and stop. I'm at 333s right now. You now want to go to your arrow keys, your up and down arrow keys, and tap this in 1 click at a time until you hit 0. So I'm going to tap my down arrow and it goes up. Clearly that's the wrong direction. Type my up arrow and it goes back to 3, up arrow again, it goes to 2, up arrow again, it goes to 1, up arrow again, it goes to 0. That is the bare change that I needed to make in this to get that to be black. And if we now take a look over here at the hair where this spot is, you can see using your preview button that we actually took it to black. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the white. I don't even need to look at it. I'm going to grab the white point slider underneath the histogram. I'm reading my second set of numbers right here, and I need them to get to 255. But again, you don't want to simply drag this thing all the way across. You want to stop short of 255. So I'm going to grab the white point, and I'm going to start to drag towards the center. And I got up to 255. Right there, I've gone too far. I need to back this off till I'm down to like a 253, and then again, go to your arrow keys and tap these in till you just reach 255. Now, when you do this, you've actually got to re-look back on your shadow point that you've corrected on this, because sometimes when you change the highlight part, it will change the shadow part. Sometimes you've got to go back and forth with these a couple of times to just get the bare minimum to get to where your hair that you want to be black is black and the background where you want to be white is white. Now, if we zoom back out, do not say okay to this yet. I'm going to zoom back out to take a look at what this really means, what this looks like in real time. I can see I've got a lot of hair here that still has shine on it, that it's not a part of this, but this is what the changes that I've made in this. And you can see I'm on my way to a much more effective layer mask. But this is what I mean by being too aggressive. Watch what happens when I do this. I'm going to actually continue to drag the black point further. When I do that, this actually starts to get way too aggressive. Look at this. Look at what happens to these hairs in here. This is not a fine, beautiful mask that's going to let some of that background tone through the hair the way hair really is. This is completely blocked up, way too aggressive in here, not something that we can actually use. So I'm going to go back to 41 on this. Ironically, it looks like they may have actually fixed this in Photoshop, that now the numbers that I get here actually match the numbers that I had in my readout, but this has never been the case until this version of Photoshop. So it's good to see that they're actually starting to pay attention more to the details. So again, I'm going to zip back out. You want to use your preview on and off to get a sense of how aggressive your mask really is. So I'm just turning this on and off, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. So now I've got some cleanup that I've actually got to do. So the first thing that I got to do is I want to go after all these highlights that are in this girl's hair right now. If you do have your tablet, this would be a great time to turn your tablet on and use it. This is what I'm going to do, because this is what I would do in real life. And I'm going to fix this with a brush. So again, I'm working on this knockout layer. I'm going to hit the B key to get a brush. You can type right, you can paint right on your brushes. But I want to start with her shoulder down here, just so that you understand the tools and the techniques that I'm actually going to use to clean this part up. So I need her shoulders and her skin. I need all of that to be black as well as the hair. I need the area around here to be white. And as I hover over this part, it's not actually white. I'm getting all of these readouts up here. These are also, my normal readouts are also in actual, they're in K, and I want to see them in RGB. So I'm going to change that to RGB as well. And then when I hover over this area up here, you can see it's in the high 240s. Her skin down here is different here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to paint this and make it darker. So I'm going to hit the D key to default my foreground colors to black and white. It just made white my foreground color. I'm going to start with black. So I'm going to hit the X key. Now you could, with your X key, again, I'm working on my knockout layer, you could come in here and try to paint along this line that is her shoulder. And you would do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is fucking that up. That is not how we want to work. So you hit Command Z to undo that. We're going to change the blending mode of my brush. If there's one trick you don't know, likely, in this class, this is it. So come up to the blending mode of your brush and change this from normal down to overlay. And what overlay does is it actually respects the tone that you're working on. Typically, what you would think of is that anything in overlay that is lighter than 50% gray, you can make lighter, but it will not be darker. And then the opposite, anything that's darker you can make darker, but not be lighter. So I've got black for my brush right now. If I paint black on this white background right here, I'm going to paint right now. You can see it affected a little bit of this up in here, but it didn't do anything down in this area down in here. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect that. Command Z to undo that. If I hit the X key and I go to white, you'll see this even better here in her hair. So I've now got a white brush set to overlay, and I'm just scrubbing back and forth on the hair up in here. This is actually on my tablet, and I get nothing because overlay protects areas that are already darker. So I'm going to leverage that to try to get this line that runs along her shoulder right here. So I'm going to start up here. Don't make the brush work harder. Keep it, again, and I'm going to keep this as a very hard brush. So I'll click on this. It's still a very hard brush. And I'm just going to run along this line. Sorry. I'm going to do this with black, X key. I'm just going to run along this line right here. And you can see I can actually go over this line slightly. My brush is going over this line, but it's actually finding the edge of her shoulder. So that gets me part of the way there, but it's not good enough. So you hit it a second time. And you can see it's also giving me a little density up in the background, but that's okay. I'm going to fix that in just a second. And I've gone through this. I'm going to go all the way down here to actually get that part. But now it's screwed up the density. I'm actually also going to get her neck in here as well. It's screwed up the density of that part just a little bit. You can hit the X key and clean that part up using white as your foreground color. And so this will actually clean up all of this area. So I'm going to clean all of that part up. And you need to use this to fix your mask. Now this area in here where we've got light hair, you can see there's also some gray that's in this. I need all of that to be white. It's never going to be perfect. So here, the trick to fix this, and we will look at other better ways to do this edge later when we get to the pen tool. This just screams to be used with the pen tool, but I want you guys to see how this will ultimately end up when we get through here. I'm actually going to change my brush to a very soft brush. So I'm going to make the hardness all the way soft. And so now what I'm going to do, a little bit bigger brush. White is still my foreground color. So now what I do is I get close to these areas because now I've got a soft edge brush and I'm simply going to click and pull out. Now I lost a little bit of hair, but I didn't lose it all. So I'm going to just do this all the way around here like this. You make sacrifices and compromises, but this whole area has been cleaned out now. I'm going to soften that part up right there for those little soft little hairs right in here. You can see my readout is 255. That's now clean, and this background will actually be clean as well. I am going to clean up the hair even more, so I'm going to hit the X key to go to black. And all of this, again, don't make the brush work harder. Stay away from these edges. The levels did it all, here did what you needed it to do. But I need to get rid of all this shiny hair part in here. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. You want to go back to a hard brush because you do not want to overspray with this. You do not want to accidentally have this spray out in this area. But the brush set to overlay will actually help you do all of this really fast. And you do not need to worry about all this other stuff. If you don't know if something is actually background, you need to actually look at the full image again. Like, I don't know if this thing right in here is highlight or background, or it's shine on her hair or background. But if I go up to the top and I look at this, I can see that is background. You do not want to get rid of that. So that stays. It does not get painted out. But all of this in here, all of this is actually shine on her hair. Boom. Excellent layer mask on her hair. I've got more work to do again on her face. I'm going to hit the X key with my overlay brush. Zoom in this just a little bit. We've got 8 minutes to finish this, so I'm going to crank through this. Make sure I'm painting with black. And again, this is not going to be perfect, but it'll get me close. And again, this area that runs right along her face right here, you will never get with an overlay brush. They're exactly the same thing. So the trick to getting this edge until I show you the pen tool is to go back to a normal brush, normal blending mode. Make your brush 100% hard. Mine is. And then you're just going to tap. Do not try to click and paint. You'll never get it. You can just tap and then move and tap. Tap, 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 and get all of that. I would go back to an overlay brush normally for this area right in here. But then this area in here, you can just paint it. It's all supposed to go black. All of this goes black. You don't need to be worried about all this. It's all the edges that we're trying to make. All of this goes black. Tap. Oh, all of that goes black. All of that goes black. The straps I need to hit with black really quick. Again, tap, tap, tap. Don't pick and don't drag it across. Again, there's better ways of doing this, but we need to finish this up. So I'm not going to worry about her straps right there. Again, that would be an overlay brush. We will get those. So I'm going to go back really quickly to overlay. I shouldn't be taking the time for this, but I'm gonna. Ooh, too much. And then this all needs to be cleaned up. X key, soft brush, just like we did on the other side. Pull away. And grab the rest of it. And then finally, this area right in here, you can hit your lasso key, the L key, and you can actually select all of this and then fill it with black. To fill with your background color, it's Command Delete. To fill with your foreground color, it is Option Delete. If you look at the two keys that are just to the left of your keyboard, of your space bar, it's those two keys, and the Command key will always be background color, and the Option key or Alt key will always be foreground color, along with your Delete key, or it's the backspace key in Windows. But so for me, my background color is black. So I simply fill that with black, Command D to deselect. And this is now my mask. So let's see how we did. So I'm going to come back over to my image over here, and I'm going to click on my image. I don't need to worry about making a duplicate of this because I'm simply going to mask it. However, I do want to change the color. So I'm going to select the background, and underneath it, I'm going to put just a color background to see what it looks like. So I'm going to click on Add Solid Color. And I want to put a cyan background under here. So to get to cyan, I do 0 red, tab key, 255 green, tab key 255 blue. And that gives me cyan. So that's the color I want to look. So then I'm going to come back to my channel. I'm going to hover over the thumbnail again. If you select the knockout layer, you select it and work on it. That's not what I want to do. I just want to load this as a selection. So hover over the thumbnail, Command click, it loads it as a selection. Back over to my hair, click on it to this hair layer, and I'm going to add this as a layer mask. And boom. it doesn't do anything that we wanted it to do, but isn't this great art? And I just call myself a revivalist of pop art from the 60s, and this is my new gig. And I make this a really gigantic print, and I put it up in the gallery, and I sell it for $1 gazillion, and there you go. Because that's really all you cared about in this class, right, is the money? No, I'm just kidding. What's the problem here? It's doing exactly the opposite of what it was supposed to do. The black is hiding the body and showing the background. How can I fix that? Exactly. I just invert the mask. So the mask is selected, Command-I. Make that selection, will you, using the AI tools. Look at this. Are you kidding me? You go to a job interview for a retoucher and you whip this out. It takes me 10 minutes to do this. I've done it 1,000 times. Not this image. I've done 1,000 of these like this, whatever. And you bang and you just knock through this, and this is where you get. This is why you guys signed up for this. I mean, not this by itself and in and of itself, but this is the level of work. Look at this. Look at the hair that's coming through here, the background that's actually coming through this part. All of this. Even the hair, I mean, even the body is not that badly done, and that was a hack job, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But look at the quality of this. I mean, I don't care where you go in here. This is the kind, do that with, you know, whatever. There's no tool that will do this. And we made all the decisions. Is this making sense to everyone? Okay. So with that being said, that's it for today. For the homework, really quickly, I will show you that. So for the homework, if you look at the assignment, there's a file in here called Sunny. You're going to open this up into Photoshop, and you're going to do 4 layers. You're going to do 1 layer for just her sweater. You're going to do 1 layer for just her skin, 1 layer for just the blue background, and 1 layer for her hair. When I say the skin, you can include her mouth, her teeth, her eyes, all that kind of stuff. I want you to make 4 layers, and I want you to use masks that isolate whatever it is that layer is supposed to show. So the sweater layer, you will use a layer mask to only show the sweater. For the hair layer, you will only use a layer mask to only show the hair. For the blue background, you only show the blue. And then for the skin, you only show the skin. Does that make sense, everyone? So it involves selection methods and layer masks. That's all it involves. Are we good? Finally, to drop your homework, because we're going to go there really quickly, I hope. Because you'll all be able to drop this all at the exact same time. So what you're going to do for your homework is, do me a favor, because I can figure this part out. Create a folder that's just got your last name, first name on it, and a 2, because then I'll know it's assignment 2. You can put both of the all the assignments from week number 2 in that. We'll be a little bit more specific later on. We really only get into doing 1 images, so it's not going to matter. So put everything that you did for your assignment for week number 2 in that folder, and you are going to drop it into the new Dropbox as soon as I get rid of the old Dropbox. You're kidding me. Dropbox SP26, that's this class, that's where you want to actually put this stuff. Just drag your file in there, and as soon as it's finished copy, you will be good to go. You should see it up on my screen if you want to make sure that it's getting there. But again, if you've connected to the server, if for some reason you cannot do this, then I want you to actually get out your phone. You're going to shoot a picture of this This is the file transfer service that I hope you'll use. It's called, it's the title for it, Smash Transfer. If you type in from smash.com, you'll actually get there. This is actually what it looks like. You can send up to 2 gigabyte worth of files free here. Don't ever pay for this. Do the free version of that, and then there'll be a place for me to actually, there'll be a place for you to send it to an email, and just send it to me and shoot me an email and say that you've actually done this part. So shoot a picture of this. This is the transfer service to use, Smash Transfer, but it's better off if you can get it into this Dropbox right here, and I don't see anybody in here yet. So is anybody trying this?
Yeah, if you go back out and go back in, it should show.
Oh, so yeah, it needs to be right.
Because I can see people on my screen.
Lord knows what I've messed up, but as long as you can see people on your screen. Guys, I'm really forgiving about this stuff in the beginning until we get this worked out. Do not panic. I'm not going to say, oh, well, you didn't try, or yeah, I'm dinging you because it's late, or that this is not how I work. Oh, now I've got things that are showing up. So yeah, I'm going to leave this going. If you've dropped your homework and you're good to go on this, then you're good to go. I'll see you next week. If not, just give it enough time to actually get on here. It just makes my life infinitely